In 2019, not so long ago, this video appeared on YouTube. A man on a boat, a fisherman, maybe a volunteer, cleaning sea turtles covered in barnacles. These parasites attach themselves to the shells, fins, or even the head of their host and can cause a multitude of problems, from discomfort, pain, infections, and even difficulties in swimming, especially when the turtle is particularly small. This man was doing a good thing, and there's no doubt about it. And these kind of videos prove immediately popular. In time, many more were published by a multitude of channels. On a YouTube scale, animal rescues are generally very popular, but removing barnacles proved to be even more popular than your average rescue video. It was not just about the kindness toward unfortunate animals. People seemed to find something oddly satisfying in watching them, and this only increased their popularity. You might think, it's all good. Sea turtles get some help, viewers enjoy the videos, and the volunteers themselves can get some form of financial support for their work through the YouTube ad revenue. Until people started to realize that something didn't really add up.
Fake barnacle turtle rescue videos. Except they're freshwater turtles and there's no way that those barnacles grew on their shells. They super glue these barnacles to the shells only to be scraped off. The problem with this is that turtles have nerve endings right underneath the shell. They can feel everything that touches their shell. This is a fly river turtle. This is a freshwater species from Papua New Guinea and New Zealand. Its shell is soft and leathery, and they glued barnacles to the shell to make this fake video.
In an effort to capitalize on the popularity of the format and make money, people superglued barnacles on freshwater turtles, filmed themselves removing them, and then pretended to free the poor animals, only to catch them again off camera and repeat the cycle all over again.
There's a lot of channels on YouTube that glue barnacles and shit to turtles' shells and pretend to rescue them. Obviously, it's fucked up. It is a huge industry. Some of the videos have like 72 million views on some of the channels. It's awful.
These people went out of their way to cash in on a trend with no regards for the pain they were inflicting. What's even worse is that they disguised their actions as an act of kindness. And if that wasn't enough, their actions tainted the work of honest volunteers and animal rescue associations. No one will ever look at sea turtles rescues the same way. Why am I telling you all of this? Well, because I hope that by the end of this video, you can tell me if you notice any similarities between this story and the one I'm about to tell you.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe.
It's just me. I can assure you it's just me. I do all of the research, the script writing, literally everything I do myself. Us small independent creators, small genuine creators like myself, small creators like myself, independent content creators like myself, actual genuine content creators like myself, genuine drag race creators like myself.
You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I do all of the research, script writing, literally everything I do myself.
Lobby of a hotel in Idaho for misdemeanor charges of malicious injury to property and resisting or obstructing officers. Nicholas later made a public apology and stated that the incident was, quote, embarrassing, and it was the result of drinking alcohol while taking pain medication for a knee problem.
Small genuine creators like myself, more creators like myself, independent content creators like myself, actual genuine content creators like myself, genuine drag race creators like myself. You can also support me by signing up to my Patreon. Butterface got called out by Top RuPaul's Drag Race videos and Paige Christie. After they got called out, Top RuPaul's Drag Race videos and Paige Christie, and two channels did sort of like an expose. Butterface got kind of exposed, if you can call it that. I exposed a content farm, and I exposed them. I did my video exposing some different content farms. One of the big ones was Butterface. It's just me. I can assure you it's just me. I do all of the research, script writing, literally everything I do myself. Literally everything I do myself. Literally everything I do myself. I do all of the research, script writing, literally everything I do myself. It's just me, I can assure you it's just me. Literally everything I do myself. Literally everything I do myself.
In August 2021, a channel called Drag Deserved was created on YouTube. In January 2022, the Butterface channel was exposed by me and Paige Christie for plagiarizing content creators, pretending to be a person, and being run by a content farm called Creolon Media. A link to the Unawareness channel confirmed by Paige ultimately led her to uncover a vast network of channels run by the same company pretending to be an independent content creator. Between April and June 2023, Drag Deserved published 2 videos in which he arguably manufactured a connection between himself and Butterface and actively minimized our work, while at the same time claiming he exposed a content farm and he exposed Butterface, effectively conveying the idea that he played a role in exposing Butterface, and not just any role, but a major one, and earning himself a very convenient image lift after being heavily criticized for clickbaiting, lazy content, and repurposing the work of other people, or in a manner of speaking, for being a human content farm. He was also instrumental in enabling a manipulative and apologetic narrative that painted Team Butterface as the victim of circumstances, while glossing over the pain they caused to an entire community. It's not normal for a member of our community to behave like that, and it sure planted a seed of doubt that led me to investigate the real extent of Matt's activities, ultimately uncovering evidence that would finally shed a light on who is really hiding behind this channel. I would have loved for this video to be only 15 minutes long. Believe me, I spent over 1,000 hours working on this already. The problem is that Matt did so much wrong, and not just any wrong, but sophisticated wrong. And I would bet that he was actually counting on the fact that no one would dare go down his rabbit hole, and even if someone did, no one in the audience would take the time to listen and understand. But I'm also betting and hoping you will listen and take the time. And I worked as hard as I could to help you out every step of the way. To thoroughly expose Matt, we're going to first need to establish the context. But if you already know what human content farms are, who Matt is, how Butterface was exposed 2 years ago, and how Deceit actually works by being intimately connected to the concept of plausible deniability, then you can already skip ahead and move to the receipts by going to this timestamp right here. It will bring you directly to the next chapter, the entrance to Matt's rabbit hole, how he connected himself to Butterface first and then claimed he exposed Butterface by employing an impressive amount of questionable, if not even deceitful and manipulative practices. And I believe this is a central piece in his story, and that he had a very specific reason for doing all of that. And this is just your appetizer. Your first course is the main rabbit hole, Matt's farmed content. If you want to jump immediately to this section, you can go to this timestamp. We're going to start easy by explaining how he relies on the work of other people, then move on to the receipts, the lack of mentions, errors and mistakes so big that it's hard to explain how any genuine Drag Race creator could even make them. Then move on to the dramatization, the exploitation of controversial issues, the plagiarism itself, and the actual amount of money involved. How Matt is turning an impressive amount of revenue by publishing videos that heavily rely at best and plagiarize at worst the work of other people. Matt has claimed to be working alone this entire time, but we are going to explore the full extent of his activities and expose everything he actually does and how it's most probably the work of multiple people. And finally, find out who is really hiding behind the smoke wall that's been put in front of our eyes. And I realize that the word shocking has been misused a lot for clickbait, but as we dive deeper and deeper into the depth of Matt's iceberg, some of you may start to feel very uncomfortable. I did my best to descend slow and steady in the most linear and stable manner that I could find, so that evidence after evidence and topic after topic, you have enough time to adapt and adjust to the weight of all of the information that I'm going to present to you, including its moral implications. But I want you to be mentally prepared, and I really mean it. Your palate cleanser is going to be my first-hand experience on this platform, dealing with creators who literally raided every shred of creativity that I put on my channel. Then we're going to move on to the second course, a thorough expose of the lies, omissions, and misrepresentations in the quote Butterface interview. How Matt was instrumental in enabling and colluding with an apologetic narrative that ultimately painted a team of people profiting from serial plagiarism into the victim of circumstances. But most importantly, explore what was the reason behind this video and how it came to be in the first place. And then the real human cost behind all of this, and the reason why I disappeared for almost a year. A trigger warning will be in place for this chapter. And finally, we'll take another look at the land of variety, but this time with a new set of eyes and a better understanding, and a new, hopeful vision of the future. For those of you who are just here for the drama, please feel free to skip ahead to the sections that interest you the most. I added all of these chapters in the video timeline to make it easier to navigate around. I know this is a long video, but this is also part of my healing process, and I ask you to please understand that I need to say all of the things that I need to say. But I also don't want to waste any of your time, because your time is as valuable as mine. So please feel free to skip ahead to any part that interests you the most. I am really not judging. For everyone else, please come with me, because I want to take you on a journey. My journey. And it's going to be a long one. This is not just an exposé. It's also part of my story as a content creator and as a person. And while we're at it, I'd like to introduce you to some concepts and ideas that you might have never heard of, and maybe even learn something by the end of it all. To all of my long-time viewers and members of this community, it's been a really long time, but I hope that this video was well worth the wait. Everyone ready? YouTube is the land of variety, and variety is a very good thing. On one hand, you have companies, corporations, and institutions. On the other, independent content creators. Let's zoom in on the first one. Physics is one of my guilty pleasures, believe it or not, and I'm a big fan of the Fermilab and PBS Spacetime channels. Both of them bring valuable content that is original, thought-provoking, and ultimately very enjoyable, at least for me. But not all companies are created equal, and so enter the realm of content farms. There are tons of content farms out there, managing thousands of YouTube channels that cover every niche of content. I'm not going to bore you with all of the details about content farms because the subject has been beaten to death at this point. Suffice it to say that they mainly come in three flavors, with all of the shades in between. On one side, you have content farms scouting the web for ideas and concepts, and investing a considerable amount of resources to rework them. It's still mostly clickbait content that relies on other people's ideas, but at least there is some kind of effort to them. We're going to call them creative content farms. On the opposite side, you have the lazy content farms, who straight up copy other people's work. Similar title, similar thumbnail, word-for-word copy of the scripts. It's basically the entire video. And right in the middle, you have the smart content farms, those who follow RuPaul's best advice. Don't work hard, work smart. Those are the ones who create shadow copies of successful videos. You might not be familiar with the term because I made that up to describe the practice of recreating someone else's video, but with enough alterations and modifications as to make it practically impossible to prove that it was plagiarized. Of course, the owner of the video will always recognize his own work because everyone has his own peculiar style. But of course, none of that matters if it's almost impossible to prove plagiarism and get some form of justice, at least in the court of public opinion. Regardless of the flavor, some content farms will pretend to be independent content creators and some will not. On the other hand, you have independent content creators, mostly people like you and me. And all of them come in all different flavors, shapes, and sizes. The vast majority works completely alone on their channels, but the most successful ones can afford to put together a team to help them carry out their vision. There's a little bit of everything, and everyone has his own unique way of presenting and discussing a topic. Now, look at the big picture again, because you missed something. Right there, right in the middle. You have the ultimate evolution of content creation on YouTube. I like to call them human content farms, independent content creators who employ all of the practices typical of content farming, but they do so behind a human face. Some can even go as far as hiring the services of a content farm in order to assist them in producing videos for their own channels. It's called content automation. It can be everything from suggesting the most clickable title to develop their script, editing their videos, or even manage their social media profiles to ensure consistent engagement. Companies like these were first discussed by Paige Christie almost 2 years ago, and no doubt they upped their game in the meantime.
So the Video Creation Hub essentially is a company that considers YouTube profiles as real estate. They do something that they call YouTube automation, producing content for many of their client channels, and they are also fully managing their clients' channels where they take care of everything.
This rare breed of content creators are difficult to spot and even more difficult to expose. Some might start as genuine creators only to move to farming content later on in their career. Some will just say, you know what, I don't care, just give me the money, and start farming content just right out of the bat. But before I discuss them, I want to stress out that I genuinely believe there's nothing wrong for a creator to get some help if they can afford it, either from other people or even from reputable companies. When you're freed from the burden of editing an entire video, or your subject is so big that it will take an entire year to do all of the research on your own, well, then hiring some help will give you the freedom to concentrate exclusively on your own creativity. The key difference between this kind of creators and human content farms is that human content farms are exactly what the name suggests. Clickbait, dramatized titles, recycling other people's idea and research, plagiarizing articles, documentaries, or even other videos on the subject. They employ all of the practices typical of content farming, but they do so behind a human face. And they all come in a variety of their own, but they all share something in common. They present as genuine creators, but their output is simply massive. They have a fast and consistent upload rate, but their ideas are not original, their commentary is shallow and surface level. They heavily rely on quoting other people's research rather than doing their own. Keywords and buzzwords are thrown in every other minute, especially in titles and in the beginning of a video, but they're almost never backed up by any real substance. They seem to be omnipresent on social media, with multiple posts on multiple platforms every single day, every single week, every single month, adding up to the abundance of videos and shorts consistently published on their channels. Creators like these have been recently exposed in a video called Plagiarism and YouTube, and for many of them it's not even the first time. What's new is that they are finally being called out for what they actually do, which is farming content instead of actually creating. If you haven't watched it, please go check it out, because it's very relevant to this conversation. And I'll leave a link in the description. As much as we would like to believe differently, farming content proved to be a very successful business model. So much so that content farms have effectively managed to outcompete virtually everyone else on this platform and emerge on top of a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's no wonder that some people simply decided to emulate their model, relying on the fact that, in our collective mind, content farm equals bad, while independent content creator equals good. Even if the independent content creator is being dishonest and employing much of the same content farming practices typical of those companies, or even going to the point of hiring them directly while hiding behind the plausible deniability of being a real person. Because content farms are by definition companies, so if you are a real person, you can't possibly be a content farm, right? Unless you're a human content farm. But I digress. You're not here for a compendium on content creation on YouTube, are you? Drag Tea Served is a channel that I could best describe as a recap channel. Most of the content consists of videos in the popular list format, where information readily available is recapped and grouped into short, thematic videos, accompanied by familiar, impactful titles. The rest of the content consists almost exclusively of recaps of Roscoe's viewing party, sometimes accompanied by titles that over-dramatize or misrepresent the actual content of the video. The channel seems to feature a little bit of everything, without being seriously invested into any issue in particular. Topics are rarely dissected, analyzed, or discussed in detail. Different points of view regarding issues relevant to the drag community are seldom explored and evaluated, and it's immediately apparent that there is a distinctive lack of analytical thinking. But that's not a requirement. Everyone is allowed to be creative in their own unique way. However, Matt doesn't seem to have any particular strong opinions on any specific topic, and his presentation is mostly neutral and composed, with the information almost exclusively presented as is. It seems like his goal is to create easy content aimed at the largest possible audience, and there's really nothing wrong with that if that's your thing. But aside from Matt's unique tone of voice and appearance, the channel feels incredibly generic and impersonal, at least to me. These might be some of the reasons why Dramatizations was accused of being run by a content farm in its early days. However, behind the channel there's a person, a real person, not a company. But looking at his content, it's understandable why some would come to that conclusion, especially in a time when Matt didn't even appear on camera.
I, in the past, have been accused of being a content farm because for a while I didn't do videos with me actually in them, so people thought that I was actually a content farm or a big company.
The fast and consistent upload rate on the Dramatizations channel, with additional content on his second channel, the polished editing, the strong social media presence with multiple posts across different social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube community posts, all seem to suggest that Matt might be getting some help. And again, I don't really see a problem with that. However, Matt has been pretty vocal on being just him.
It's just me. I can assure you it's just me. I literally do every part of my videos. I do all of the research, the script writing, recording, literally everything I do myself.
Putting himself in the same league of small, independent content creators who struggle to do everything on their own. The kind of creators that audiences are most likely to empathize with and offer their support to, either by reposting their videos or financially supporting them.
Many of us genuine content creators, us small independent creators, small genuine creators like myself, small creators like myself, independent content creators like myself, actual genuine content creators like myself, genuine drag race creators like myself.
And this poses a serious question of honesty and credibility. Matt has been heavily criticized in the past, and even reposted some of the criticism himself. You might not like his content, think that it doesn't really bring anything new to the drag race community, or that his work takes away visibility from content creators who publish way less, but put massive amounts of original research and effort behind their videos. But, strictly speaking, Matt hasn't really done anything wrong. And even if he did, there was hardly any evidence to suggest it. Until now. You heard about the Butterface channel and the company behind it for 2 years now. Chances are, if you got to know about them from Dramatizations only 6 months ago, know that a large chunk of the story was omitted. In addition, there are details that I never shared publicly for personal reasons. Now it's time to set the record straight. I first saw the Butterface channel around August 2021 and noticed peculiar similarities with some of my works. I knew about content farms and I had a hint the channel was run by one, but I couldn't really be sure. It was also still the height of the pandemic, with many content creators relying on YouTube as their primary source of income, so I decided to be very cautious about it. But the Butterface channel was not an isolated incident, and I was starting to get really upset in seeing my work repurposed by dishonest people. In September of 2021, I published an anonymous warning, asking 2 channels to stop repurposing my work. One was the Butterface channel, the other one is still anonymous.
And speaking of inspiration, for the past months I've been keeping an eye on 2 different channels who seem to have made an habit of coming here and repurposing our content and research as their original ideas for their channel. Cut that shit out, because I really ran out of patience.
As the weeks went by, the Butterface channel started publishing more and faster. More videos appear to be suspiciously similar to the works of many other content creators as well, most notably Bassi Queen and Jake Yonce. It's unclear why Bassi didn't address the issue. What's for sure is that Jake Yonce couldn't have done anything even if he wanted to. Almost 2 years prior, in October 2019, he was sued following an exposé of a company called Neverland Events and Artist Management, detailing allegation of misconduct toward many notable drag race queens. So, in all likelihood, he was advised by his legal team to maintain radio silence. This is common practice during litigation. However, his experience posed the question of the actual amount of risk involved in exposing the Butterface channel. Judging by the pace at which they were publishing new videos, it seemed to be run by a big company, way bigger than Neverland. Would the same thing happen to me if I tried to stand in their way? There was no way to know for sure, but now a layer of anxiety piled up on the frustration. Most, if not all of the videos, appeared to be high-quality shadow copies. The titles were different, the thumbnails were different, the scripts were different. Everything was different enough. They seemed to be plagiarizing videos back to back with no regards for how it would impact the original creators, financially for sure, but emotionally and psychologically as well. Seeing your artwork, your creativity, your passion being taken away and bastardized by a team of people out to make money at your expense doesn't exactly do wonders to your motivation and your creativity. One thing was clear. The Butterface channel was affecting our entire community. The problem is, if I tried to expose them with weak evidence, that would almost guarantee me a trip to the court for the next 5 to 10 years, bankrupting me, my partner, and our families in order to sustain a prolonged legal battle. Not to mention the risk of no one believing me in the court of public opinion. In an environment where people seek drama for the sake of clicks and views, viewers have become very skeptical of this sort of things and might easily mistake an attempt to speak out as the next iteration of clout chasing. If I was serious about this, then 2 conditions needed to be met. First, the evidence had to be strong. Something that could prove plagiarism beyond reasonable doubt. Something so obvious that I would certainly win a court case if they decided to retaliate against me, and to win it quickly. Second, it had to be personal. If things really went south, in good conscience, I couldn't risk involving another content creator in a battle that they didn't agree to be part of. Needless to say, the months between September and December 2021 were a miserable time for me, full of frustration, anxiety, and a sense of being powerless to do anything about it. Being one of the oldest Drag Race channels, I had a dozen of videos that performed fairly well under my belt, so there was a good chance that maybe they would pay me another visit. And maybe by that time, they would have become overconfident, maybe make a mistake, maybe a big one, and I would be right there, watching and waiting. The 28th of December 2021, they published another video titled What Not to Do at a Drag Show. The video had striking similarities to When Fans Keep Going Too Far, and sections of the videos also contain my watermark, which mean that they lifted video clips directly instead of doing the research themselves and finding the original sources. 5 days later, I published my first exposé. The work itself was challenging. I wanted to expose the practice of content farming within the Drag Race YouTube community, something that was unheard of, explain the real struggles of content creators, prove that my work was stolen, and making a convincing argument that the Butterface channel was run by a content farm. Butterface was the very first channel specifically designed to appeal to the Drag Race audience. Most of the viewers didn't even know what a content farm was, let alone one running a channel that's pretending to be a content creator. So the last point was the most challenging for me. I matched the videos exactly in order to provide hard proof that they repurposed my research, explained the copyright law regarding fair use, and provided negative proof by making a detailed argument as to why what they were doing couldn't possibly qualify as fair use. I explained how content farms were hurting independent content creators and the commercial dynamic between pretending to be one of them. Compare the workflow of real content creators to the output of the Butterface channel in order to prove that it couldn't possibly be the work of a single person. It was a massive amount of work. But as you know by now, I've been preparing it for months.
They took our work, instead of doing their own research to find the original clips, and created a video that looks and feels like a bastardized version of our own. That's not how fair use works. Video by video, it almost looks as if whoever runs that channel hunted down trending videos and high-quality videos to create their own copycat, 8 to 12 minutes bastardized version of all of them. There is no way a single person could publish this much. Who is hiding behind this channel? Is it a content farm? a new improved version designed to look and feel like an independent content creator.
And it worked. People understood the magnitude of the problem. The day after, the Butterface channel published a statement where they tried to spin the narrative and dismiss my argument. They refused to take any real accountability for their actions or even being honest about being run by a content farm. Most infuriating, they didn't acknowledge any other content creators that they seem to have taken advantage of. As of today, they still haven't acknowledged any of them. I went back to work and published a second expose, explaining the inconsistencies in their statements and doubling down on my research efforts. Evidence was slowly piling up.
The quote-unquote Team Butterface released this statement yesterday. Meanwhile, a channel called Green Gay popped up in my comment section. He took a break from YouTube. He says his videos were stolen as well. There is no mention of him, or Aki, or Jekionse, and God knows how many other content creators who seem to have been so inspiring for this channel. I'm lucky WoW hasn't noticed. No legal team, they don't mind me. They don't mind you? Didn't you just say, who is this friend, you ask? Team Butterface doesn't say. Now the trail of breadcrumbs seem to point out to this channel.
And everything could have ended right there. But unbeknownst to me and the audience, someone else was watching and waiting, much like I did not so long ago. Enter Paige Christie. She found solid proof of the connection between the Butterface channel and the Anna Hoop channel.
And underneath their first video, which is every single time Monet Exchange came for Tamisha Iman, which was posted on the 16th of June 2021, there was a comment left by Anna Hoop, and the comment read as follows.
With both channels confirming the same side of the story, there was no reasonable doubt anymore. But Paige put the nail in the coffin by finding the writer for the Butterface channel and her connection to the content farm behind it. That company was Creolon Media. Finally, after so many months of anxiety, frustration and fear, we finally knew who was responsible.
Currently, Dee is a scriptwriter at Creolon Media Group, where she writes several scripts a week for the Butterface YouTube channel.
The link between the Butterface channel and the Anna Hoop channel also provided definitive proof that the Anna Hoop channel was run by the same content farm, and they've been pretending to be an independent content creator all along. After an entire year of lies, deception, and copyright claims, an entire different community was finding justice for their own. The Butterface incident was the biggest scandal in the Drag Race YouTube community, bar none. In its aftermath, it felt as if a huge burden was suddenly lifted from everyone's chest. A wave of support was shared among many different independent content creators. Green Gay, another creator that was affected by the Butterface channel, started publishing again, and his work saw an unprecedented level of growth and success, to the point where his videos have almost become an institution today. Butterface connections to channels like Anna Hoop made the issue resonate in other YouTube communities as well, and by virtue of kickstarting the exposing of Anna Hoop through the work of Paige Christie, the Butterface incident went, if you will, mainstream.
Well, it wasn't long before alternative theories began emerging, alongside some pretty damning evidence. This is Butterface, top RPDR videos, uploaded a video accusing Butterface of ripping their content. Butterface then put out a response to this video. However, this was further taken apart by top RPDR videos. It seems pretty certain that this special someone is Anna Hoop, and not too long after, another creator appeared on the scene, Paige Christie.
The thumbnails were created at that point by Anna Hoop was all I needed to then go and do some dirty investigation.
This is pretty damning information, particularly when combined with the collective research prior. It proved that there was an undeniable connection between Butterface and Anna Hoop.
Exposing the Butterface channel was an incredible feat, and it was the result of months of work on my part and on the part of Paige. And we both have different merits. I exposed the problem of content farming in the Drag Race community and the Butterface channel for plagiarism, lying in their statements, pretending to be a person and being run by a content farm. But Paige, she is the one who really took it to the next level. She is the one who exposed a content farm, Creolon Media, by finding solid proof that connected the Butterface channel to that company. She also found tangible proof of the connection between the Butterface and Anna Hoop channels, and in the process, also exposed the Anna Hoop channel for being run by a content farm. In my first iteration of this script, This section was supposed to end after inserting a clip from the Right Opinion channel. I felt the need to add this last section because later on you will hear of someone claiming that he exposed a content farm in the context of the Butterface channel. And that's not only false, it's also incredibly unfair to Paige because it's taking credit for her work. But it seems like the art of honesty is a forgotten one. Anyone can make up a lie, but deceiving people is on a completely different scale. Deceit is a lie on steroid. Let me explain why. A lie is very simple. Someone is saying something that is not true. Siamese are a breed of dog. No, they are cats. Here's the Wikipedia page, and here are loads of Google images. The lie is pretty self-evident and can be easily uncovered by exposing the truth. The burden of responsibility is immediately clear, and it's on the person who lied. It's all pretty straightforward. Deceit is very different because it's a way of lying indirectly, covertly. For example, when someone only tells you half of the story and you end up coming to the wrong conclusion, you are being deceived. Deceived into believing something that is not true. But it goes way beyond that. Instead of lying directly, deceit aims to create a distorted image of reality that leads people to believe in a lie that was never spoken in the first place. In other words, deceit carefully plants a lie in your mind instead of saying it out loud. And this presents all sorts of advantages over the humble lie. For a starter, it creates plausible deniability, because the person who tried to deceive you never actually spoke any lie. Instead, he relied on using a series of techniques that are not immediately self-evident and can be difficult and time-consuming to track down. And that's when plausible deniability comes into play once more. It's not that facts were omitted, someone simply forgot to mention them, or in his opinion they were not relevant enough. And sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. How do you tell the difference between someone distracted and someone who actively tried to deceive you? Well, you need to get more context, more information, do more research, and that can take a lot of time and patience. That's why deceits are so notoriously difficult to expose. But the real cherry on top, the thing that makes deceit particularly insidious, is that it appears to shift the burden of responsibility. A liar is a liar and is responsible for lying. But deceit creates the illusion that you are the one responsible for being deceived. It's your fault if you got the wrong idea. It's your fault if you came to the wrong conclusion. It's your fault if you got it wrong. Because the deceiver never actually spoke any lies, so it must be your fault. And since people are naturally inclined to reject the idea that they have been deceived, this only serves to create a vicious circle that goes nowhere. But this is simply not true. The burden of responsibility is still on the person who deceived you, who is hiding behind actions that, although they are not immediately clear, they are still pretty much there. It's only a matter of uncovering them. So, what are the building blocks of deceit? Let me give you some examples. Omissions are pretty easy to understand. It's when you only get part of the story instead of the whole thing. Many different things can be omitted, like information, facts, or even the context of a situation. Misrepresentation is trying to pass information or situations as something different from what they really are. You didn't eat the cake, it just fell in your mouth. If the misrepresentation is about minimizing the effect of something, like downplaying a situation or the impact of some information, then it's called a minimization. Of course, the opposite is true as well. Those are called exaggerations. Deflection is the attempt to distract the listener by shifting the focus onto a different issue. This usually happens when dealing with indefensible positions, so the deceiver tries to deflect the issue to a more defensible one. Don't blame it on the edit, you're the one who said it, is a deflection, specifically a deflection of responsibility. It's not that words from different moments in time were stitched together to create something you never said. It's that you spoke those words in the first place, right? Of course. Vague talking is the use of unclear language that leads people to add their own meaning. Let me give you a more sober example. When I was a teenager, I was too afraid to come out to my parents, but I also didn't really want to lie to them. So, when the subject of dating came, I always used vague language about it, like, when you find the right person or dating someone is a big step. So I didn't straight out lie to them, and they understood what they wanted to understand, so win-win. Don't worry, we're almost done. Audiovisual pairing is when the meaning of a message is split into two different parts that are presented at the same time. One part is delivered in voice, the other as an image. Our mind naturally associates the two and gets to the real message. If I tell you that I got a new pet while you see an image of a dog, you immediately conclude that I adopted a dog, even though I never actually said that I adopted a dog. The priming effect is a well-known and documented fact. I'm not going to bore you with scientific definitions here, but in very, very simple terms, priming is the act of showing something first as a way to facilitate something else later on. In the context of deceit, it's used to make other building blocks more credible, like enabling an effective deflection or misrepresentation. And finally, the chain fallacy. This is used to create a false connection between two things that in reality have nothing to do with each other. In order to go from point A to point B, someone creates a series of links between the two. The first links are usually very legitimate, and this is not by chance, because it gives the whole thing a first impression of credibility. But somewhere in this long chain, there is a broken link. However, it's so buried down that by the time you get to it, most people will be already won over or too tired to actually notice. Let me conclude by saying that most of these techniques are not inherently bad. They become bad the moment they are used maliciously. Omissions and misrepresentations are essential ingredients in a good mystery novel, for example. Audiovisual pairings are commonplace in teaching young children the meaning of words. They hear a word, they see an image, and they easily associate the two together. Priming can be incredibly useful to make things easier to understand. As a matter of fact, I am priming you right now to all of these concepts so that later on you can more easily follow along with the story. But other ones, like chain fallacies, double language, and causal arguments, are used exclusively in the context of deceit. I didn't include these last two in my description because this section is already getting pretty long, but please feel free to check them out because they are really, really interesting. These concepts and many more are pretty much commonplace all around us, and they've been there since the creation of communication itself. The vast majority of people use them without even knowing that they are actually a thing. As a matter of fact, I met people that routinely used double language and priming without even have the slightest idea of what they are and how they are called. Deceit seems to be something that is mostly socially learned. Some people are just better deceivers than others. And the unique way in which all of those building blocks are combined together to create an effective deceit seem to resemble a strange form of art. The meticulous threading of a fine line that, if you're not careful, will easily bring you from the reasonable to the absurd. But if deceit is a form of art, then uncovering it must necessarily follow the rigorousness of science. In the beginning of April 2023, I received a notification for being mentioned in a community post by Drag Tea Served. In the post, Matt claimed that a channel called Drag Queen Talk made a word-for-word copy of one of his videos, and he suspected the channel might be run by a content farm. I left a comment suggesting it might be Creolon Media, and asked him to also link the work done by Paige Christie. The post was radically edited sometime later, and what you see right now is its current form, not the original post. There are all sorts of interesting things going on with this, and we're going to get to it later. Soon after, Matt contacted me on Twitter, where I encouraged him to speak out if someone plagiarized his video, and gave him permission to use as much as my butterface expose as he needed in order to back up his claim. However, unbeknownst to me, Matt seemed to have had a totally different intention than what I was initially led to believe. The 21st of April 2023, Matt published a video titled Exposing Fake Drag Race YouTube Channels, Butterface, and Other Content Farms. The title itself is simply majestic. There is so much wrong crammed in those few words that, frankly, I feel torn apart between disgust and admiration. But let's go in order. Exposing Fake Drag Race YouTube Channels. This is a misrepresentation. You read the title and think you're going to see a long expose on many different fake channels. In reality, Matt spends 13 minutes, which is half of the video, recapping information about content farms and mentioning 2 channels that have already been exposed for being run by a content farm. He raises most of the same points as me, Paige, and Anne without spending any time to elaborate on novel subjects like the evolution of content farms, the amount of content farms out there, and the challenges of speaking out against them. The information is also outdated since there is no mention of content automation, something that was pointed out by Paige over a year before. He also quotes Anne Reardon, like I did in my own video, and talks about content farms, but I wouldn't exactly call her the authority on the subject. I chose to quote her in my previous expose because she's my partner favorite content creator and she does talk about this subject. It was a wink wink nudge nudge to the most important person in my life, something that I put in every single one of my videos. That cake didn't fall in your mouth by chance. But Matt says Anne is also her favorite content creator, so maybe he thought the same exact thing. The rest of the video actually features an expose in the proper meaning of the term, and it's about the Drag Queen Talk channel, a channel that changed its name to Damien Discusses Drag. And if those are the many fake channels that Matt is referring to in the title, then this is another misrepresentation of his work that only serves to mislead the viewers on the actual content of the video. It also adds a layer of plausible deniability because, after all, there is some form of exposing in this video, even though it's not what the title might lead you to believe. We are not even remotely finished. According to the title, who are these fake Drag Race channels that Matt is quote exposing? Butterface and other content farms. There is something very interesting going on with this last part, and don't worry if you missed it, I missed it too on my first read. Matt is misrepresenting what content farms actually are by saying that fake channels like Butterface are content farms. But content farms are companies by definition. Matt knows this very well, so well in fact that he says so himself multiple times.
A content farm, or in other words, a big company. So a content farm is basically a large company. It's just a really big company. These content farms, because they're massive companies with lots of employees.
This difference might seem trivial, but I believe that Matt has a very clear purpose for making such a gross misrepresentation, even though he clearly knows better. This is also not a coincidence, because this same message will be reinforced multiple times over the course of the video. For the moment, keep in mind that the title is priming you to the idea that fake channels are content farms. I will put it here, so you won't forget. The title is also priming you to 2 other concepts. The idea that Matt is exposing content farms, which by now you know is not true, since he merely repeats information that's already widely available. And the idea that Matt is exposing Butterface, which of course is absurd, because the Butterface channel was exposed almost a year and a half before this very video was even published. But remember, deceit is the art of threading a thin line that carefully brings you from the reasonable to the absurd. The introduction of a video is the very first impression that viewers will get after seeing the title and thumbnail. And first impression is what counts, especially for those who know nothing about the subject or won't even finish the video. We content creators, Matt included, know this especially well, because a bad introduction can make or break a video, and audience retention is one of our main analytics. In the short 30 seconds that serve as introduction for the video, Matt seems to do everything in his power to never say out loud the name Drag Queen Talk, the channel he claims plagiarized one of his videos, the one responsible for how this whole thing started, basically the first name that anyone will say when making a video about a channel that stole your work, the name of the channel who did it. But Matt doesn't. Instead, he will only use vague language like this channel, them,
and this channel, and I called them out about it.
So let's take a look. The introduction begins with Matt claiming he exposed a content farm in his edited community post.
So as many of you may have seen, I recently had a little bit of drama where I exposed a content farm.
Notice how the screenshot has been conveniently cropped, and your attention is immediately drawn on the highlighted date next to the name Butterface, instead of the writing that's on top. So, while Matt is never technically saying the name Butterface, he's also conveniently never saying the name Drag Queen Talk, and lets the viewer come to their own conclusions. Spoiler alert, his claim is also an exaggeration. Matt never exposed any content farm, unless you change the meaning of exposing and the meaning of content farm, which is basically 2/3 of the logic structure of that sentence. Also, despite Matt's claim, the alleged company behind the channel that plagiarized his video still remains unnamed to this very day. But let's continue.
I exposed a content farm, or in other words, a big company that pumps out lots of content and pretends to be a real person.
Matt correctly defines content farms as companies, even though not all of them pretend to be independent content creators as part of their business model. But it's close enough. Let's go on.
And pretends to be a real person. And this channel had previously stolen some video ideas from me and some other creators, and I called them out about it.
His use of vague language makes the whole thing even more confusing. What channel is Matt referring to? We don't know. Which other content creators is he talking about? We don't know either. I checked out Matt's Twitter feed and couldn't find any evidence of Matt defending any other content creator for being plagiarized by the Drag Queen Talk channel. In the community post that Matt is actually referring to when he speaks these words, there is no mention either. Equally puzzling, Matt was not even around in the autumn of 2021, and he certainly never spoke out for any content creators involved in the Butterface controversy during that time. In case that's the quote channel that he is referring to. Maybe what Matt means by saying
previously stolen some video ideas from me and some other creators, and I called them out about it,
is that back in October 2022, he went on Twitter and called out the Drag Queen Talk channel for plagiarizing one of his videos. And this sentence is just worded incorrectly. However, this sentence is at best a misrepresentation of what Matt actually did in the post that is referring to, and it's conveniently worded in a way that heavily suggests that he spoke out to defend others. Fun fact, there is no mention of the people who exposed the Butterface channel, despite the fact that that channel is arguably the main topic of this entire video, as shown by the title and thumbnail. Now, as you know and can hear, English is not my first language, but even I could have rephrased this introduction in a way that makes it crystal clear for everyone what we are really talking about. Hello! A channel called Drag Queen Talk plagiarized one of my videos, and I made a series of posts discussing the situation. I suspect the channel might be run by a content farm, possibly Creolon Media, the same content farm that ran the Butterface channel. A channel that was exposed last year for being run by a content farm, pretending to be a person and plagiarizing other content creators. Check out the expose by Top RPDR Videos and Paige Christie if you want to know more about how this story began. See how it's all very clear and straightforward? There is so much wrong in these short 30 seconds that I find it hard to believe that it is not by design. After the introduction, Matt makes a small recap on content farms, where he correctly defines content farms as companies for the second time.
So a content farm is basically a large company that their sole purpose is to create content.
He also describes how they create content for their YouTube channels.
And usually these content farms have lots of employees, sometimes hundreds of employees, and they all work together to create constant content for lots of YouTube channels.
However, when it comes to present some examples, Matt refers to the YouTube channel 5 Minute Craft as a content farm, which is the same thing that he already did in the title.
One big example is a YouTube channel that you may have heard of called 5 Minute Crafts. So they're a big content farm.
And he will do the same thing again later on when referring to the Butterface channel.
One big example of a drag race content farm that some of you may know about is a channel called Butterface.
And then again, when talking about the Drag Queen Talk channel.
This channel is not who they say they are, and at the very least, if they're not a content farm, they were trying to humanize their channel, because I called them out for being this sort of faceless content farm.
This doesn't just happen randomly. So, according to Matt's own words, content farms are companies who hire people to create content for their YouTube channels. But also, the channel itself is a content farm, even though content farms are companies by definition.
Your logic is flawed.
Why is Matt doing this? Why does he keep referring to YouTube channels as content farms? Up until now, we can only speculate. But since he does so despite clearly knowing better, At this point, it's safe to assume that he might have a purpose for doing so. Contrary from what the title and introduction might lead you to believe, there is exactly zero connection between the Butterface channel, the biggest scandal in the Drag Race YouTube community, and Drag Tea Served. But Matt believes there is, and that's perfectly fine. Anyone can believe whatever they want. The problem comes when presenting your own belief as a matter of fact, especially if you don't have any hard evidence to back it up. I believe that any moment now, my partner will storm into the room, drag me to the bedroom, and ravage me until dawn while Alejandro by Lady Gaga plays on loop on the background. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to magically become a reality, does it? Oh my. Yeah, that didn't happen. Anyway, there is no connection between Butterface and Drag Tea Served. And I believe that deep down, Matt knows that too, because he appears to do everything in his power to create the illusion of a connection that just isn't there. Listen to the very, very peculiar way in which he describes the Butterface channel.
They're a channel that talk about gossip, secrets and drama about Drag Race.
Does that sound familiar?
Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. And welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. And welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama.
If I was asked to describe the content of the Butterface channel, I would say that they recreated any successful video that they could get their hands on. They didn't care about any specific issue as long as it was popular. Of course, there were controversial videos. Drama brings views after all. But I don't think that Drama Channel would be the most accurate description of what they were doing, and I doubt anyone would ever describe it as a channel that focused on, quote, gossip, secrets, and drama. No one, apart from Matt. Not even 10 seconds later, he says this.
About gossip, secrets, and drama about Drag Race. And they were doing very well. And they were posting videos a lot. They were getting hundreds of thousands of views. And they would kind of do sort of a similar thing to me.
Notice how he's not saying things like, we talk about the same subject, or our topics are similar. No, they were doing something similar to him. Which, of course, is absurd. Creole Media didn't travel in time to watch Drag Tea Served, a channel that didn't even exist, in order to do on the Butterface channel the same thing that Matt does. If there really is a connection between the two, then by the laws of physics, it must go in the opposite direction. Drag Tea Served is doing something similar to what the Butterface channel was doing, which, ironically, starts to appear very much true. After a 13 minutes recap on content farms and fake channels, Matt finally gets to the central idea of the video. Something that I would have expected him to say during the introduction, but for some reason got confined to the middle of the video. And he does a reasonably good job in explaining the issue in a clear and concise manner, only to immediately fall short by claiming he exposed them.
I have since got involved with a different channel who I believe is actually the same company as Butterface, and they've created a new channel and I exposed them.
The video in question is called 5 Banned Queens from RuPaul's Drag Race. The idea itself is not an original one, and even the title is basically the same. So, according to Matt's own wording,
try and create videos as quickly as possible so they can make the most amount of money. And the quickest way to do that is by stealing ideas from small, genuine creators. And this channel had previously stolen some video ideas.
He just exposed himself for stealing my video idea, which is very unfortunate. But that's okay. From my point of view, plagiarism is something else. I don't mind if Matt was inspired by my work and decided to elaborate on the subject in his own unique way. I just find it very ironic that he seems to be so eager to point his finger to an issue, only to end up tangled in the same exact mess. Before starting the exposé, Matt reminds the audience once more to the main idea of the video: a connection between drag queen talk and Butterface.
A new channel emerged that was called Drag Queen Talk. And I noticed that a lot of the thumbnails and their style was quite reminiscent of the old Butterface videos.
However, it doesn't show you any side-by-side comparison of the channel's video list, so you gotta take his word for that. This is of course an omission, but don't worry. I have an actual screenshot of the channel and I'm going to show it to you later on. Now, according to Matt, back in October 2022, Drag Queen Talk released a video that was a word-for-word copy of his work. A word-for-word copy is clearly plagiarism. I think we can all agree on that. Matt made a Twitter post, and his evidence was really small, only a handful of seconds, but it's pretty effective.
I think for many Drag Race fans, when you think of queens that have been banned from the show, Willam is probably one of the first queens you'd think of.
William is probably one of the first queens that come to mind for many Drag Race fans when you think of queens who have been banned from the show.
Also, the fact that the video was deleted after Matt's post sure seems like an admission of guilt, an attempt to destroy the evidence.
And shortly after I called them out in that Twitter post, they removed the video.
I don't know why Matt didn't download the video immediately instead of just recording a small clip. That could have been useful also to prove that they were copying his errors. But that's really beside the point, because I think his case is pretty much proven at this point. Matt also noticed that they mispronounced the name of the queens and that they didn't know the difference between Carmen Farala and Carmen Carrera.
They also said that Willam's name was William, and while they were talking about her, they also showed a clip of Carmen Farala.
Many months later, in April 2023, Matt noticed that Drag Queen Talk was publishing more videos similar to his own. Let me put some channel names to make it more clear. He also noticed that one of their videos had a similar title and thumbnail as one of the videos published by the Butterface channel. For Matt, this was too much of a coincidence.
And for me, this was just too much a coincidence for those two channels to not be related.
So he decided to make a YouTube community post about it. The post gets traction, it gets mentioned on Reddit, and then Drag Queen Talk changed its name to Damien Discusses Drag, with the picture of a person as channel icon. With the help of a fan, Matt tracked down the person in the image, who confirmed that he didn't run the channel.
I think this channel is using your photo. Is this your channel? And Alex came back to me and said, no, I know absolutely nothing about it.
So he decided to make a YouTube community post about it. Then the channel changed its image a second time.
To me, this is clear evidence that this channel is not who they say they are, and in my opinion, they're likely to be a content farm.
At this point, it's pretty much clear to everyone that the channel is being run by a content farm. And by virtue of this similarity,
probably the same company that also did Butterface.
Or in other words, Creolon Media. Before we get to the missing link, I want you to notice how clear, concise, and easy to follow Matt can be when he wishes to do so. It's hard to believe that this is the same person who made all of those misrepresentations, vague talking, and curious connections that we talked about before. However, it seems like it's also too good to be true, because at a closer inspection, there are many flaws with his explanation. After proving his case for the 5-band Queens video, Matt justifies all of his reasoning on title and thumbnail similarities alone, without showing any of the actual videos. And this is a very dangerous practice that can easily lead to disastrous consequences, especially on a platform where plagiarism is a very real thing. Topics of general interest will inevitably be covered by multiple creators, especially if they've already been discussed by the online Drag Race community. It's not the idea of making a video about a well-known topic that's original. It's the content of the video itself, the way everyone gives his own unique take. For these topics, title and thumbnail are simply not enough to draw any conclusion and must always be accompanied by more information and treated with extreme caution. Otherwise, things like these might happen. Let me show you. According to Matt, video A is similar to video B, with video B being published after video A. Matt doesn't show the channel name in the image, but this was definitely his video. Matt also highlights similarities between the thumbnails for video B and video C. Then, by applying the transitive property, video A must necessarily be similar to video C. However, this video was published on the Butterface channel on the 29th of September 2021. So, according to Matt's own way of reasoning and wording, he just exposed himself a second time for stealing video ideas, this time from the Butterface channel. You see, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? Fun fact, this video was also unlisted from Matt's channel, and you can only find it in a playlist. And this is very much an isolated incident because I might have compared the channel's entire video list to the videos in Matt's playlists, and this is the only unlisted one. How curious, isn't it? Number 2. Matt's presentation conveys the idea that Drag Queen Talk changed its name the first time, because people found out that it was run by the same company as the Butterface channel.
I then posted about this on my YouTube community tab, saying that I believe that this channel, Drag Queen Talk, is the same people behind it as Butterface. So then went on to social media and Reddit. Suspiciously, just a few hours later, Drag Queen Talk suddenly changed not only the channel name.
This is certainly a possibility, but it's not a certainty. It's entirely possible that the channel changed its name merely to disguise the fact that it was run by a content farm, which might also explain why they changed it to the name of a person and even put the picture of a person. So, behind the channel there's clearly a content farm, that's pretty much clear, but which one among the many trying to profit from the YouTube market? Number 3, and most important, Matt justifies his final connection by showing only this comparison. And it's a pretty striking one, I will give him that, but that's what it's called, circumstantial evidence. In a nutshell, it's basically evidence that points in the direction you want to go, but that can also have a different explanation, so you don't really know which one is the right one. So, what other possible explanations could be there? Well, that this was a different content farm, and there is actually a lot of evidence to support that. Krillin Media never stole people's images, exposing themselves to the risk of being sued for impersonation. And not just merely impersonation, but impersonation to conduct fraudulent activities like plagiarism, which in many jurisdictions is a criminal offense. Or in other words,
prison, honey.
On the contrary, they always paid visual artists to create and animate different avatars, and those avatars became the face of their channels. Second point, Krillin is what I would call a smart content farm that created shadow copies, reworked scripts, reworked titles, reworked thumbnails. The content farm behind Drag Queen Talk seemed to be of the lazy kind, word-for-word copy of the scripts, like it happened to Matt, similar titles and similar thumbnails. So, it makes sense that stumbling upon a successful video from the Butterface channel, they just did what they seem to have been doing for every other video that they had. Third point, Krillin Media, for all its flaws, has always been very moderate and respectful in their responses. After I exposed the Butterface channel, they offered me an apology, they congratulated my channel, they wished me well in my endeavors. Yes, this statement was still manipulative and deceitful, but the response itself was very corporate, very polite. The content farm behind Drag Queen Talk even went as far as trolling Matt by reproducing his signature description after he called them out.
I started this channel to please you with all the gossip, news and drama from our queens, which sounds awfully similar to someone else's tagline.
Next point, mispronouncing the names of the queens. As Matt correctly says so himself, one of the first clues that gave away the Butterface channel to the viewers was the fact that they mispronounced the names of the queens. This is something Krillin was very well aware of from the comment section of the videos. What you probably don't know is that for a content farm, opening a YouTube channel is a huge investment, because you need to put together a team of people, put them to work, and keep working at a loss until the channel gets approved for the YouTube Partner Program, and then make enough views to become actually profitable. That alone could take months in which you're basically paying a bunch of people without seeing any profit. It's hard to say if Krillin ever managed to get back their investment on the Butterface channel. But I find it hard to believe that they would risk losing their investment again by kickstarting a new Drag Race channel without addressing the very issue that gave them away in the first place. And lastly, Matt never showed you the video list of the Drag Queen Talk channel.
And I noticed that a lot of the thumbnails and their style was quite reminiscent of the old Butterface videos.
But looking back at a screenshot from the Internet Archive dated March 31st, 3 weeks before Matt published this video, the similarities appear way less pronounced than what Matt might have led you to believe. The thumbnails look like your average clickbait images. At a closer inspection, the fonts become more and more inconsistent. The arrows look similar. These are standard arrows who are very common on YouTube. Even Matt himself used to use them. And that's not all. The general style of the thumbnails look different somehow. So we could spend hours talking about this. But the reality is, even with all of this reasoning, this is all circumstantial evidence. It might point in a direction, but it's not proof. There's no way to know which company ran the Drag Queen Talk channel, and anyone seriously committed to the truth would inevitably come to the same exact conclusion. And incidentally, that's also why Paige Christie is the only person among us that could rightfully say she exposed a content farm, because she found the hard evidence, the undeniable connection between the YouTube channel and the company. And that's why this chain ends right here and no further. But Matt doesn't seem interested in addressing this issue with the same amount of thoroughness that he used while trying to prove that Drag Queen Talk was run by a content farm. And then he goes way beyond that. Even if we assume that Creolon Media really was behind Drag Queen Talk, that's not the name that Matt has been throwing around since the beginning of the video, is it? And actually, after his 13 minutes recap on content farms and fake channels, Matt never even mentions the name Creolon Media once. Instead, he will paraphrase in a way that curiously involves name-dropping Butterface.
I believe is actually the same company as Butterface.
Butterface?
Drag Queen Talk is the same people behind it as Butterface.
Butterface.
Probably the same company that also did Butterface.
Butterface.
It's showtime.
Butterface. Whether Butterface, 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 the Butterface, 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 Butterface.
Butterface is not a person. It's the name of a channel run by a content farm called Creolon Media. She can't go around opening new channels as she pleases, like Matt so eagerly shows you in this image. He says the right-ish thing.
They're likely to be a content farm, probably the same company that also did Butterface.
But he shows you the wrong one. This is the correct image. But if there is no difference between a content farm and the channel they run on YouTube, then by virtue of this simple but crucial misunderstanding, now Matt could say things like, Butterface is back. Butterface stole from him, and he exposed Butterface for stealing from him. And if some members of the audience end up confused and believe that Matt had anything to do with exposing the Butterface channel for being run by a content farm, pretending to be a person, plagiarizing other content creators, speak up on their behalf, being connected to the Unawareness channel, all in spite of fear of retaliation from a multi-million-dollar company, well, that's on them. Because Matt never actually says that, but he sure seems to have done everything in his power to gently push that idea in the back of your mind. Back in June, while I was dissecting this video, I was under an enormous amount of stress. My health was deteriorating, I was still out of a job, and my partner was hospitalized. So I asked myself, is it possible that you're just so stressed that you got it all wrong? And I don't regret questioning myself, because we are talking about clout chasing on steroids and misleading the audience to believe that he had any credit for our work, and not just any work, but work that came at great personal cost and benefited an entire community. This is unprecedented. This is huge. This cannot possibly be true. It can't be true. It just can't. I refuse to believe it. Period. There must be another explanation. There simply must be. The best I could think of was that maybe Matt is simply incredibly misinformed. Maybe he really doesn't know the difference between a content farm and a YouTube channel. The problem is that he describes the issue correctly multiple times, so how do you justify that?
A content farm, or in other words, a big company So a content farm is basically a large company. It's just a really big company. These content farms, because they're massive companies with lots of employees.
Well, maybe he didn't really research the topic. Maybe he straight out copied part of his script from somewhere else And that's just it. That's why he said correctly that content farms are companies, just by repeating words that he didn't really understand. And since he didn't understand the meaning behind those words, it inevitably led him to the wrong conclusion. It's a bit shaky, but it's better than nothing. However, it doesn't really explain how he could be so thorough with the Drag Queen Talk channel, only for immediately jumping to conclusions when it came to link that channel to Creolon Media. And what about everything else? That intro, for example, the fact that he didn't even mention us in the beginning of the video, or the way he described the Butterface channel with those weird connections to himself. How do you justify that? I struggled. I really struggled for days, trying to find something that would clear the situation because I just didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to. Something like that would effectively break me for good. And so I looked. And looked, until something finally caught my attention.
Butterface got called out by Top RuPaul's Drag Race videos and Paige Christie. After they got called out, they subsequently deleted all of their YouTube posts.
Call them out, you say? This is a very curious wording, isn't it? It almost sounds like a minimization of our work. Me and Paige, we didn't just go on social media and call them out. We published 3 exposés that collectively took hundreds of hours of work and research over the course of many months. But look again at the title of Matt's video, and listen again to the way Matt refers to his community post containing one image.
I recently had a little bit of drama where I exposed a content farm.
So, we called them out, but Matt exposed them. I see. This is bad. This is bad. But maybe he will correct himself in the following video.
I did my video, I think it was a month ago perhaps, sort of exposing some different content farms. And one of the big ones was Butterface, which I'm sure quite a few of my subscribers will know about. Top RuPaul's Drag Race videos and Paige Christie, are 2 channels, did sort of like an expose of the channel and sort of exposed. After Butterface was sort of exposed, Paige Christie did this sort of expose. Butterface got kind of like exposed, if you can call it that.
What the is bullshit? This piece of If you can call it that, then who exposed the Butterface channel? You, Matt? A year and a half later? By showing a thumbnail and lots of mental gymnastic? I went back to his community post, only to find out it was edited. He says Butterface was exposed, but the names of the people who exposed the channel are nowhere to be found. You have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the post to find mine and Paige's name. But there is no direct reference that connects us to the Butterface name. He refers to my work by saying that I, quote, exposed content farms, while Paige did a good exposé on this, followed by a list of conveniently unnamed links that maybe people will click on and maybe they will not. And mind you, the feature that automatically shows you the title of the video directly from the link was implemented by YouTube in December of 2023. For over 6 months, this is what people saw on this post. Now that we have all of the pieces of the puzzle, let's try to understand what happened and why. But I want to make it very clear that what you are about to hear is just a theory, so treat it as such. Let's begin. I think that back in October of 2022, the Drag Queen Talk channel really plagiarized Matt's work, and he had a good case against them. But in April of 2023, when he stumbled upon this thumbnail, he saw an opportunity. An opportunity to insert himself in the biggest scandal the YouTube Drag Race community has ever seen.
Recently, the drama started up again because I noticed that a lot of the videos, and I also saw that one of their video thumbnails was almost identical to one that Butterface had done a year before. I then posted about this on my YouTube community tab.
Something so big that it reached out to other YouTube communities and effectively became mainstream. And that's a lot of clout and money just waiting to happen. Maybe he could even mislead some of the audience into believing that he played a part in exposing the Butterface channel, preying on the fact that new viewers might be a little distracted while watching his video, while other viewers might just read the title, watch the intro, and then jump immediately to conclusions, certainly taking advantage of any future content creator who poorly research their topic go on YouTube, search Butterface Exposed, stumble upon his video, and maybe get the wrong idea, only to misunderstand the issue themselves and misleading an entire new audience, adding up to a circle of misunderstandings that once it gets started would become unstoppable like wildfire. More clicks, more views, more money, and a nice image lift for someone like Matt, who's been criticized for clickbaiting and adding nothing new to the conversation. One thumbnail is not enough, but with a little bit of misdirection, maybe the viewers will just overlook that. That brings him closer to the name Butterface, but not close enough. The only way to get to Butterface is to just misconstrue the meaning of a content farm. Many viewers don't know they exist, let alone what they actually are, and some of them are already running with that narrative. If he could do that, then he could magically say that Butterface was behind Drag Queen Talk, Butterface stole from him, and he exposed Butterface. And that wording alone, exposing Butterface, could be enough to associate himself to the biggest scandal in the YouTube Drag Race community. Possibly even confuse some of the viewers on who actually exposed the Butterface channel. Maybe he could even feed into that confusion by minimizing the work of the people who actually exposed the Butterface channel while maximizing the impact of his own. But he had to be very, very careful about it. There were still enough people around to remember what really happened, and he couldn't risk being called out by them. So the goal was not to straight out lie to everyone. The goal was to associate himself to the name Butterface first, and then blur the lines by using the same exact wording, while at the same time keeping the informed viewers at bay by planting seeds of plausible deniability. And that's the real key. Plausible deniability. Make a title and start instilling the two central ideas. He exposed Butterface and fake channels are content farms. 30 seconds intro, claim he exposed a content farm and confuse the viewers on the actual issue and chain of events.
I exposed a content farm, and this channel had previously stolen some video ideas from me and some other creators, and I called them out about it.
While also avoid mentioning the people that actually exposed the Butterface channel. Reinforce the concept that content farms are fake channels.
One big example is a YouTube channel that you may have heard of called 5 Minute Crafts. So they're a big content farm. One big example of a drag race content farm that some of you may know about is a channel called Butterface. This channel is not who they say they are, and at the very least, if they're not a content farm, they were trying to humanize their channel because I called them out for being this sort of faceless content farm.
Use specific wording to further associate himself to the Butterface channel.
They're a channel that talk about gossip, secrets and drama about Drag Race, and they would kind of do sort of a similar thing to me.
Minimize the impact of the work of the people who actually exposed the Butterface channel.
Butterface got called out by Top RuPaul's Drag Race Videos and Paige Christie. After they got called out, they subsequently deleted Craylon Media, who they said were running Butterface.
Avoid mentioning Craylon Media and instead paraphrase in a way that involves name-dropping Butterface.
I believe is actually the same company as Butterface. Drag Queen Talk is the same people behind it as Butterface. Probably the same company that also did Butterface.
Claim similarities without showing the channel's video list.
A lot of the thumbnails and their style was quite reminiscent of the old Butterface videos.
Leverage people's confidence by comparing thumbnails instead of showing the actual videos.
I noticed that a lot of the videos they had been posting recently were quite similar to some of my videos.
Jump to conclusions by showing only one piece of circumstantial evidence.
Even the text and the font color are the exact same. And for me, this was just too much a coincidence for those two channels to not be related.
Misconstrue the issue further by editing the wrong image. And finally, add speckles of plausible deniability to keep everyone else at bay. Because, to be perfectly clear, there are instances in which Matt is giving proper credit to the people who exposed the Butterface channel and Craylon Media.
Top RuPaul's Drag Race Videos exposed Butterface, Paige Christie, who did a great expose, and they basically exposed the fact that Butterface was actually owned by a very large company called Craylon Media. And after they got exposed, their views dropped off massively.
But those are so few and so confined that when compared to the amount of wrong that there's actually in the video and ultimately enabled Matt to claim he exposed Butterface, well, they look more like preemptive attempts to ensure plausible deniability rather than genuine attempts at being factual. Meanwhile, his community post was radically edited. He now misrepresents the issue by saying, Butterface is back. He correctly says that Butterface was exposed, only to immediately convey the wrong message that fake channels equals content farm. And the names of the people who exposed the Butterface channel are nowhere to be found. You have to go all the way to the bottom to actually find our names. Our names are there, the links to our videos are there, but there is no direct reference that connects us to the Butterface name. Fast forward to June 1st, and Matt's second video comes out. An interview with the voiceover actor for the Butterface channel. And that's where his intentions become crystal clear, because it's been over a month since this video came out, and Matt is confident that he got away with it. So there is no real need for plausible deniability anymore. He straight out edits part of his video showing the Butterface logo, while the voiceover says he exposed a content farm. There is no recap of the Butterface channel, instead he only mentions himself and his video.
I did my video, I think it was a month ago perhaps, sort of exposing some different content farms, and one of the big ones was Butterface, which I'm sure quite a few of my subscribers will know about.
And when the subject of plagiarism finally comes, he minimizes the work done by me and Paige.
Top RuPaul's Drag Race videos and Paige Christie, are two channels, did sort of like an expose of the channel and sort of exposed that the Butterface channel was a company. After Butterface was sort of exposed, Paige Christie did this sort of expose. Crayon Media was the company that was rumored. Butterface got kind of like exposed, if you can call it that.
And that's it. Nothing more. No attempts at plausible deniability are present in this video. And there's no need for them, because he already got away with it. And he knows it. Until now. And if you think all of this is bad, then brace yourselves, because we're just getting started. After dissecting these two videos, I started to feel very unsettled. I haven't discussed the interview yet, because I want you to see that in light of all of the information that I'm going to present to you in the following chapters. But for the moment, I'd like you to come back with me to a time in which all I really had was my analysis and a powerful feeling that something didn't feel right. In my mind, I was pretty convinced that Matt tried to take credit for exposing Butterface, or at least deceive the audience into believing that he was the one who really exposed Butterface. The fact that he used the name Butterface instead of Crayon Media already told me the entire story. But why did he do that? Because it didn't make sense. Apart from being questionable in the first place, it was also very risky because me and Paige, we're not exactly your average content creators, and everyone pretty much knows that. We dig, we find things, and we really enjoy doing it. We both went against companies, big companies, and held them accountable for what they did. World of Wonder, Crayon Media, Spill. Why would he do something like that knowing that there was a very high chance that he would be held accountable? Because Matt is not stupid. If anything, my analysis proves the exact contrary. So why? It boggled my mind. It really boggled my mind. There was an intuitive part of my brain that was desperately trying to tell me something, but I couldn't really understand what it was. As I looked at the Dramatizations channel, something immediately caught my attention. It's not normal for a genuine creator working alone to be able to publish this much and this consistently over such a long period of time. Unless you are vlogging, gaming, live streaming, or commenting on topics just by switching on your microphone or your camera and giving your bare opinions, your analysis, your criticism, and your point of view. But Matt does virtually none of that on the Dramatizations channel. With some rare exceptions, all of his videos are merely a source of information, with no opinions, no analysis, no criticism, no emotions or peculiar delivery. Matt is not making documentaries and is not gathering bits and pieces that, when put together, paint a bigger picture and tell a different story. It's just a steady stream of information, and if it's not a Roscoe's recap, then it's information loosely connected by virtue of being drama or curious facts. And not just any kind of information either. In all of the videos in the list format, it's information that implies a considerable amount of original research and analysis, what he calls secrets. At a closer inspection, virtually none of the information provided by Matt is novel information either. It's not original findings, and it's not the result of original analysis. Matt is not researching anything in the strict meaning of the term. He aggregates and repeats information that was originally provided by other sources. And while there is nothing wrong with repeating information in a journalistic fashion, for example, it's also not exactly the definition of creativity and originality. And unfortunately, this is really just the beginning, because differently from a journalist, all of the videos are accompanied by the usual impactful and dramatized titles. There are many instances in which Matt repeats information inaccurately or even exaggerates in a dramatized fashion, without properly mentioning the sources in the video, with the references to the original works buried down in the video description. And this practice as well is far from accurate or even consistent. There are instances in which Matt doesn't even make it clear to the viewers that he is just repeating information in the first place, and there's a total absence of any references whatsoever in the video description, thus conveying the idea that this was his work, instead of the work done by other people. On the Dramatizations channel, this appropriation of credit it's mostly just implied by omission, and by the use of a very careful wording. But it reached its peak on Matt's third channel, where he actively tried to convey the idea that his findings were the result of his own original research, when in reality it was the research done by other people. But let's go in order. There is so much that I could cover on this channel, but I really must stick to only some examples because we don't have an entire week for this. We already know that the 5-band Queens video was full of inaccuracies, since Matt pointed it out himself. In this video, Matt doesn't say where the interview came from, and then reports the wrong information.
In an interview once, fellow Season 3 drag sister Shangela revealed some tea. Production put duct tape on the doors to stop them from being able to open them without anyone hearing it open. So apparently they managed to get the duct tape off the door and sneak out.
This actually came from an interview by Joseph Shepard, and this is the true story.
We figured out that if you put duct tape on the lock of your door, that when it closes, it doesn't lock you out, because we didn't have keys to our rooms.
Not only the fact is reported inaccurately, but there's no mention of the original creator, and there's also no reference in the video description. This lack of mentioning the original creators in the videos is going to be a common theme encompassing the vast majority of the videos. Same video, Matt reports inaccurately that the producers asked Detox to help Jinx with her makeup. He says it's from an interview, and of course, he doesn't mention which interview or who made it.
Detox once said in an interview that during Season 5, a producer came up to her during filming and asked if she would help Jinx with her makeup.
This comes from an interview by Mark McNamara and John Hill on the Discretion Advised channel, where Detox actually said that Matthew is the one who asked to help Jinx.
No one asked me that, but Matthew Anderson pulled me aside and was like, can you please work with Jinx on her makeup, like just help her like do some shit.
After this, Matt goes on his own dramatized tangent by adding that
Detox then explained that she felt as though the producers were helping Jinx more than the other contestants and that they clearly wanted her to win, which was unfair.
None of that was even remotely mentioned in the actual interview. Detox never even used the word unfair. Needless to say, there is no mention of the video and no reference in the video description. 4 mind-blowing backstage secrets from RuPaul's Drag Race.
In a live video...
It was not a live video, it was a live on Periscope.
Adore then went on to say that it was in fact the guest star in episode 1, Raven Simone. It actually started with Raven Simone.
Raven Simone, yeah. Good lord. A 1-year supply of Raven Simone? Anyone remembers that, or are we all too old for that? And mind you, Matt is recapping some parts of the episode too. Did he even watch it? Or is he just repeating information from somewhere else? Because that time, RuPaul made a big deal about getting Raven's name right.
Miss Raven Simone. No, Simone is how you say her name, okay?
It's true,
yes.
it's Simone.
Hello?
Needless to say, no reference in the video description. 6 RPDR secrets and crazy moments behind the scenes.
Trixie and Katya once said on their YouTube show,
one of the oldest and acclaimed YouTube show, featuring 2 of the most famous and recognizable drag queens in the world. A show that collectively amassed hundreds of millions of views since its inception many years ago. However, Matt seems to be oblivious to all of this. Who doesn't know that if it's a show on YouTube and it has Trixie and Katya, then it's Un? This is literally like having no idea that You Better Sissy That Come on, say it, because you know it. Of course, no references. Same video, Matt explains that Adore got 2 root canal surgeries during episode 9 of season 6, and she wore a mask to hide the swelling. This one seems accurate, but as usual, Matt doesn't even mention if this was an interview, an article, or whatever.
What you may not know is that Adore revealed that during season 6, she had to have 2 root canal operations.
It almost looks like someone made a passing reference to this, and Matt is just referring secondhand information. The source is actually a podcast from Feast of Fun. I'm not trying to pronounce the names because I'm sure I'm going to butcher them. But again, I guess maybe they were not relevant enough to be mentioned. Same video, Crystal's lawsuit. Matt says that Lauren's case was rejected.
Lawrence tried to countersue, but his case was rejected, and Lawrence was forced to pay £36,000.
This is inaccurate. Lawrence asked for a jury trial instead of a high court trial. And that is the request that was rejected, not the case itself. Now, since the request for a jury trial had to be met with a legal response from Crystal, Blake and Thorpe, the judge also ruled that they have the right to be compensated for the legal cost of that response, £36,000. But Matt said something completely different, didn't he?
Lawrence tried to countersue, but his case was rejected, and Lawrence was forced to pay £36,000.
You would expect a little bit more accuracy, considering that we're talking about legal proceedings regarding a shocking, and this time, literally shocking, accusation moved against members of our community. But no, this kind of surface-level reporting on very controversial situations, including inaccuracies and dramatization, is going to be a common theme for the channel as well. Needless to say, no references to the original articles. 5 more crazy production secrets from RuPaul's Drag Race. Matt talks about the infamous "That's clearly a dude" confessional that was added during Milan's lip sync in order to dramatize Jeremy's edit. Matt doesn't even mention if the information comes from somewhere else. Instead, he acts as if he himself is guiding the viewer to that very discovery.
And then it cuts to Jeremy's confessional, where Jeremy says, quote, "That's clearly a dude." This exact same soundbite was also used in episode 10. So it appears as though the producers took the soundbite from this episode and applied it to an earlier episode.
However, I am the one who made that information available in this viral video from 2019, transforming this tiny discovery into a well-known fact. And I still have all of the materials from that video, because I didn't find it by chance. I rewatched the entire season, took snapshots of Jeremy in the workroom and all of his confessionals, wrote down the timestamps, cleaned up every duplicate, and compared the confessionals' outfits to the workroom ones in order to pinpoint which day she filmed those confessionals, and finally identify all of the misplaced confessionals and rewatch them all to find out why production was teleporting Jeremy around. And I found way more than just this confessional. It took me over a week to do all of that work. And I mean, honestly, I had fun doing it, because eventually I even perfected this method into a full-fledged system that allowed me to pinpoint fake narratives and messed up storylines that needed additional confessionals to be reshoot. But, I mean, I guess fuck me too, because not only there is no reference to my work, there is no mention that this is someone else's work in the first place. And I can't help but wonder, what would a new viewer think of all of this? Will he think that Matt found this out all by himself? That this is part of his research? I mean, clearly I must be the idiot here, because why spending weeks doing actual research and finding things when you can just take stuff from other videos without even mentioning them? Or even better, just take stuff from Reddit. Those guys can't even clap back because they don't even have a YouTube channel. And speaking of Reddit, same video, the lost footage during Art Simone's lip sync. Matt shows tweets that have a white background, but when it comes to the tweet about the lost footage, it now has a black background. Curious, right? That's because Art deleted that tweet, but it was saved and reposted by a Reddit user called Pineapple and Milk on the RPDR drama subreddit. But you know how the saying goes, right? No good deed goes unpunished, because of course they're not even mentioned here, not even in the references. What about this video about queens who quit drag, featuring Jeremy, who did not quit drag by any stretch of the imagination? She merely left behind the name Fifi O'Hara, but she didn't stop engaging in the art of drag. In fact, she seems to have been flourishing since she became just Jeremy.
Jeremy explained in several interviews.
Should I mention no references?
Check out my video, RuPaul's Drag Race Queens Who've Called Out RuPaul, for more information on this.
Now, for completeness, let me add that most of these examples are from 2022, because since 2023, Matt actually made a sizable effort to at least add references in the video descriptions. However, those are not always present, complete, or accurate. In fact, if you watch any of Matt's compilations, you will find no references whatsoever. And there are many instances in the other videos in which, again, the original sources are not mentioned in the video itself, which is arguably the most important thing, because very few viewers will actually scroll to the video descriptions in order to find the original sources. And even if they do that, the lack of descriptions for the links makes identifying who has credit for what even more difficult. But I guess bad habits are hard to break, and we're going to see an example of this very soon. But I can assure you these are not isolated incidents, and they are already pretty telling. And frankly, I'm also starting to think that maybe, just maybe, misreporting the source material might actually be a pattern rather than the exception. Not the tweets or the articles, sometimes. Those are quick to read or even scroll through. I mean the videos, the interviews, the podcasts, the episodes of Drag Race. Is Matt creating videos by reporting second-hand information exclusively? We might never know. But I will be very blunt with you. This looks to me like someone scrapped together stuff from other videos and read it and then called it a day. This looks like underpaid ghostwriting. I don't watch Roscoe's recaps anymore since they have become basically elimination spoilers, but I would hope that at least those recaps are consistently reported within a reasonable degree of accuracy, even though the titles are still kind of misleading and dramatized. Six shocking secrets from RuPaul's Drag Race that you never knew. This is going to be interesting. If it's clickbait or not, that's really for you to decide. Personally, I would be shocked to find out that during the filming for Untucked for season 14, RuPaul left the main stage, you know, makeup, wig, pajama pants and all. Maybe even wearing flops instead of shoes, just to be comfortable. And then she walked outside of the studio, only to find out George's sitting on the stairs and smoking a blunt. And I want you to imagine, like literally picture this in your mind, RuPaul slowly approaching her, still in full makeup, wig, dress, pajama pants, fake titties, flops, whatever you want to put in there. But with all of the mannerism typical of the stereotypical male. You know, the walk, the posture, and all of that. And then looking intensely at Georges and be like, dude, this show sucks. You gonna pass that blunt or what? That would be shocking. And incredibly amusing too. Of course, don't get any strange ideas. All of this never happened outside of my own imagination, but we need to joke every once in a while because this is going to go south pretty quickly. So let's go back to the video.
The lost episode. Jocelyn Fox once confirmed in an interview.
It was not an interview, it was a DragCon panel. And thanks to JerMexican23 for providing a link, because I remember this clip, but I would have never found it on my own again. So, you recognize this guy, right? It was Jocelyn's drag daughter during the makeover episode for season 6. Brandon was visibly uncomfortable during the entire episode, so much so that he even threw up. But he was otherwise respectful towards all of the other queens.
What do you really think your teammates are gonna say?
The locker room chat that we have is gonna be a disaster, man.
You gotta be secure with yourself, Brandon.
No, I'm very secure with myself. In my profession, it's not funny for a gay person to, come in the locker room. I don't want him, checking me out either.
But listen to how Matt describes him.
Brandon seemed quite uncomfortable and a bit homophobic throughout the show through some of the comments and the things that he was saying.
Homophobe. You know? The same word that's used to describe the people that hate us, beat us, and murder us in cold blood. I could have understood if he used the word bigot, even ignorant, but still, this was a man in a line of work where being queer or sympathizing too much with queer people can easily get you out of a job.
In my profession, it's not funny for a gay person to, come in the locker room.
I mean, have you ever wondered why we had so many actors came out in the past decade, and so few athletes in comparison? Football players, basketball players, soccer players. Do you honestly think this is just a coincidence? Because the locker room stereotype is very much alive and kicking, and going past it necessarily implies a change in our collective attitude towards nakedness and attraction, or the lack of attraction. And this is not only left unaddressed, but actively discouraged in media and advertisement. We might say all of the right things, but practically, as a society, we are doing all of the wrong ones, and allowing or tolerating all of the wrong ones to happen, with the mercification of the female body as one of the oldest examples of all of this. But I mean, don't worry, as a society, we're moving past that. Now we mercify male bodies as well. But of course, who cares about all of that? Let's just call this man a homophobe, because this makes... Okay, I don't really think that Matt even watched this episode, and this is really not as deep as it sounds. I know. It's just that at some point, while I'm watching all of this, I get triggered and I need to get it a little bit out to make myself feel better. I'm sorry about that. I understand that it could be that Matt just saw this wording from somewhere and just went with the flow. Or sort of, because I guess if you say he was just a little bit homophobe
and a bit homophobic throughout the show,
you can still drop a hate-charged word and still retain a semblance of plausible deniability. Who knows, maybe people will start arguing in the comment section, which is always good for business. And this was also reposted as a short very recently and even advertised on Twitter too. And I can only conclude that Matt hasn't changed his mind in the meantime. But in case you really watched the episode and really thought Brandon was the way he describes him, then it's interesting to notice Matt's cognitive dissonance towards the need to work for a living. Because Team Butterface plagiarized content creators for a living. Or at least that's what Mo claimed, and wait for when we get to the interview because it's really going to be gaggy. But Matt was perfectly willing to understand that.
We don't always take a job because it's morally correct. We do it to put food on the table.
Maybe you went along with it, but like I said, you're kind of doing it to survive.
Yet, when it comes to Brandon, the same line of reasoning doesn't seem to apply. Now, Matt doesn't shy away from featuring controversial issues in general, for no apparent reason than just capitalizing on the drama. Even when the drama comes at the price of real victims who suffered years of abuse. You know, there was a common agreement between all of the Drag Race creators on YouTube and the Reddit community after the full extent of the allegations against Sherry Pie finally came to light. And if you call it catfishing, well then that's a hell of a minimization. We're talking about cases when the abuse went on for years. We're talking about coercing people to assume dangerous substances under the guise of getting a paid job. We're talking about years of lies and exploitations and much, much worse than that. The gravity of all of this was so unprecedented that it became paramount to limit the exposure of this person on YouTube to safeguard the victim's well-being, especially considering the vast reach that we all have on this platform, because the last thing they needed is to be constantly reminded of all of that by seeing the face of this person splattered all over YouTube. And we all informed our audiences of our decision, with every other content creator soon following through. And if anyone was curious, then people on Reddit would take the time to explain the issue, provide the receipt, and keep everyone else informed on any future updates. But here on YouTube, we would stay silent and add in the extra work to edit around this person, even if it came at the cost of extra time and extra work. And that's how the online Drag Race community showed its support for the people that were hurt. That of course Matt did the exact opposite. In fact, he even doubled down in the case of Soju, where the alleged victims were underage. And it doesn't even stop there. Virtually every controversial issue has been put in full front with the usual amount of accuracy, in-depth analysis, and insightful commentary that we got so used from Matt. Yes, of course I'm being ironic in case you are wondering. And it doesn't even stop with featuring people who have done genuinely questionable things. Everyone seems up for grabs. What about Rock'em Sakura, or as Matt calls her, Rocking Sakura, included in a list of, quote, surprising RPDR stars who have done porn, even though her pictures and videos were taken during Folsom Street Fair? and then massively reposted during a run on Drag Race. It's not exactly the same thing, is it? And of course, in this video, there's no mention of how Rock spoke out a year before in support of victims of 8 crimes that were targeted due to their Asian heritage, and how she opened up about her past as a sex worker in the massage industry, how safe she felt in our community despite the inner dangers of such a line of work. There is nothing of this. And why would such information be there when the point only seems to be capitalizing on the drama, any drama, even if it means misconstruing situations, dramatizing events, or omitting the real context and the real chain of events. But I want you to stop for a moment at this, all of this. This is part of what Matt calls the work of a quote, genuine Drag Race creator like himself. And these are just some of the things that I noticed with little time that I could invest in watching Matt's content, because at this point it's become triggering for me to watch his content, believe it or not. And this is all based on my limited knowledge of the show and all of its surroundings, especially when compared to the collective knowledge of our entire community. And if we were to recruit all of them and meticulously scrub through all of Matt's content, then we could have a proper assessment of how bad it actually is. And now that we have the dramatization cleared, let's move on to the plagiarism itself. 20 editing mistakes on RuPaul's Drag Race. This is by far the worst of it all. Basically, half of this video contains an almost clip-by-clip copy of my viral video from 2018, minus the creativity to frame the whole thing as an ironic piece of science fiction. And this happens again, and again, and again, and again. The editing is also basically the same, he just substituted a circle with an arrow. And Matt is not saying that this information came from somewhere else, and he is not even commenting or criticizing my original work, because he is presenting all of this as if it was his original work, and he keeps referring only to himself and how he talked about this before.
One very obvious example comes from season 3 with Shangela when she is talking about Stacey Lane Matthews, which I have talked about previously on my channel. One example I have talked about before on my channel is during season 4 with Jeremy Carey.
It conveys the idea that this was his own original research without actually saying it. Why am I not surprised? But regardless of that, there is only one word for all of this. It's called plagiarism. It's stealing the work of others, passing it as yours, and then turn a profit on it. And he even had a sponsor for this video. And this is not even an isolated incident. The other half are additional mistakes that I have little doubts were found by other people, but are not even mentioned. Some are mine as well, from other videos. And you might think we are done, but we are not, because we still haven't explored Matt's third channel. Yes, there is a third channel, because apparently Matt still has plenty of time available after creating videos for the Drag Tea Served and the Drag Tea Interviews channels. We'll get to this superhuman workload very soon, but for the moment, let's take a look at this channel. It was created in May of 2023, and it already had a significant amount of views in that month, despite the fact that there are no videos from that timeline in the channel's video list. So in all likelihood, these are the videos that were uploaded in May, who got subsequently deleted and re-uploaded in June. Fun fact, this channel also has its own Patreon page. The first thing that struck me was the presence of video clips. These are not the animated images that we got used on the Drag Tea Served channel. Instead, there are tons of video clips in all of the videos. And one thing that people understood really well when I exposed the Butterface channel was that making video edits is incredibly time consuming, because you need to find all of the original videos, import them in your editor, find the exact location of the clip you need, cut it, import it in your timeline, and then repeat this process over and over again until you have all of your clips. This is incredibly time-consuming when compared to just animating an image, zooming in or zooming out, or even directly appearing on camera. But if Matt would rarely use video edits on a channel catering to the Drag Race audience, he would do the exact opposite on a channel catering to a totally different audience. I already have a pretty good idea of what Matt's content is all about, but if we need additional proof, then this looks like the perfect place to look for it. What's similar compared to Drag Tea Served is the substantial lack of commentary, criticism, or any form of analysis. These videos too are just a source of information. The second thing that caught my attention was the fact that he actually mentions his sources in the video. This is something very different from what we got used to. But I follow some entertainment channel, and judging from my experience, mentioning your sources correctly is an absolute must in this precise niche of content. And I want to stress out that mentioning the sources in the video does not reflect a change in Matt's attitude, because going back to the videos on the Drag Tea Served channel produced during the same period of time and even to this very day, we still find little to no proper referencing in the videos. Mentioning the sources is something that happens consistently only here on this channel. However, it seems more like a facade rather than proper referencing, because many references don't even match up with the script. And many references in the video description have either been omitted or they seem to have no reason to be there in the first place, sorry. Well, you know what they say, having a laugh is better than crying, so let's have a laugh about it. So, let me give you some examples, not all of the examples, because again, we don't have a whole month. Let me give you my favorite examples. This video is called 5 Dark Secrets about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
In a January 2022 article in Deadline...
In an article from Deadline. This is the only article from Deadline in the references, and it's the wrong reference, because it's a response to Joss's comments as reported in the article that Matt failed to reference. This article. How did this reference got here? Back in the day, I found it very suspicious, but since I didn't trust Matt anymore, I decided to follow my hunch instead. And it was a long shot, but it's basically worth a try at this point. So, what I thought was that maybe, just maybe, whoever wrote the script for this video used this article as part of the blueprint for this section of the script, and then was so naive or distracted to actually add it in the references. So, is it possible? Only one way to find out.
Charisma also said that Joss had once called her fat while she was 4 months pregnant, and then when Charisma told him that she was pregnant in a closed-door conversation, Joss apparently asked Charisma if she was going to, quote, keep the baby. Charisma also said that Joss had mocked her religious beliefs and also accused Charisma of, quote, sabotaging the show.
Let me stress out that there is no mention from Matt that is actually quoting an article. For all intents and purposes, Matt is presenting this information as if it was the result of his original research.
Charisma also said that she was forced to work long hours while she was heavily pregnant, and then she was, quote, unceremoniously fired the season after she gave birth.
But curiously, what he says sounds more like an attempt to reword Tom Tapp from Deadline. Also, there is no context to all of this, like the fact that Carpenter spoke out in the first place to support Ray Fisher and Gal Gadot after they came out with their own story of mistreatment by Joss Whedon. This video looks like a very surface level kind of product, and I could honestly, like really honestly, spend a couple hours dissecting it from top to bottom, and I can guarantee you I would mostly even enjoy it. References included. But again, we don't have time for all of that, so let's move on to one of my personal favorite parts, the section about Nicholas Brandon.
6 years later, in 2010, Nicholas returned to rehab after an incident where he was tased by police for being intoxicated in public. He was also charged for 2 counts of battery against a police officer and 1 count of vandalism.
Why do I have the feeling that Matt didn't actually research the past legal issues of Nicholas Brandon and instead relied on the Wikipedia article? Could it be that's because he started this section without mentioning any sources, because he did the same thing in the section before? So, again, there's only one way to find out, so let's keep watching.
According to UPI Entertainment, a few months later in May 2010, Nicholas apparently checked himself into rehab again to address his addiction to alcohol and sleeping pills.
You know what's funny about this part? Matt says that it's a quote from UPI Entertainment. This is the only reference to UPI Entertainment in the video description, and it's the wrong article, because it doesn't mention rehab at all. What's even gaggier is that if you search for any article published by UPI Entertainment using the keywords Nicholas Brandon and rehab, you will only get one result, from April 2004, 6 years before this. So what the hell is the real purpose of this reference?
According to UPI Entertainment,
and most importantly, where is Matt's information really coming from? Because Wikipedia actually quotes the correct article, which is from Fox News. My god. Like Matt likes to say, apparently, he might be plagiarizing Wikipedia instead of doing his own research. Why am I not surprised? But let's continue.
Nicholas had another brush with the law in October 2014 when he was arrested in the lobby of a hotel in Idaho for misdemeanor charges of malicious injury to property and resisting or obstructing officers. Nicholas later made a public apology and stated that the incident was, quote, embarrassing, and it was the result of drinking alcohol while taking pain medication for a knee problem.
What the fuck? I mean, what the Matt? This section is basically identical to the Wikipedia article, with tiny bits and pieces out there that change it a little bit. What the hell? Matt didn't even mention he was reading from Wikipedia, and there are no references to Wikipedia either. He is acting as if he researched this entire segment all by himself. Listen to what he says later on.
And Nicholas's latest arrest that I could find.
If you heard someone saying something like that in this specific context and situation, what would you think? Would you think that he did all of the research by himself? Because I sure would. That's exactly the impression that I would get. Turns out that facts might be a little bit different. But let's continue.
Nicholas was arrested again in February of 2015 on suspicion of grand theft in Florida after he apparently trashed his hotel room and refused to pay.
Matt then makes a quote of Nicholas Brandon's spokesman, like the Wikipedia article does. Then again, like Wikipedia, he mentions his next arrest. And for the first time, this seems to have been complemented by an actual article. Needless to say, it's the same article mentioned by Wikipedia.
Nicholas was arrested again later that year, this time at a hotel in Tallahassee, after apparently causing $1,000 worth of damages after he demanded an upgrade of his room. And Nicholas was also arrested later that year in South Carolina for public intoxication and impairment, and he entered rehab again in June of that year.
And then he moves on to the next section, about the appearance on Dr. Phil. This part is quite different from the Wikipedia article and much more detailed, which is very weird, all considered, because it's really an outlier in here. But then I thought, well, this is a channel about TV shows. Dr. Phil is a TV show. And maybe in prospect of a future video on that show, Matt could quote himself and redirect people to this very video, something that he does quite a lot on the Drag Tea Served channel. Business as usual, some would say. Then Matt moves on to the next two arrests in October 2015 and October 2017. And here is where he really brings it to the next level. Bonus points if you can guess what he does.
Nicholas has also been arrested several more times since then. Once in New York in October 2015 for apparently attempting to choke his girlfriend in a hotel room, and then again in October 2017 in Palm Springs when he was arrested for assaulting a different girlfriend. Both times, Nicholas was charged and convicted of various offences.
Did you make your guess? Let me clear it out for you. Matt said Nicholas was convicted of several offences, which in legal terms is technically correct because pleading guilty is in fact part of that definition. However, legalese is not exactly the language spoken by the average viewers, and this wording can be pretty effective in dramatizing the actual events and leave the viewers with the impression that Nicholas was sent to prison, especially when you consider that Matt could have just as easily said something like, both times Nicholas agreed to a plea deal to avoid a potential prison sentence. But let's continue.
In 2021, Nicholas addressed the allegations that Charisma Carpenter had made against Joss Whedon, and Nicholas said that he, quote, loves Charisma and Joss, but he also admitted that his relationship with Joss had not been entirely friendly.
Oh yes, back to the old Wikipedia article again. Do you see a pattern? Because all of the names are changed to the first names, words are changed to their synonym, sometimes words are switched around a little bit, quotes are a little bit misquoted, even though Matt is saying that is quoting, but they seem to be misquoted in an effort to change them a little bit from the way they're actually quoted on Wikipedia. I mean, at this point, I bet none of you is actually surprised. So let's move on to the very last bit, because apparently this is Nicholas' latest arrest that Matt could find.
And Nicholas's latest arrest that I could find...
I'm sorry, but Matt is just so committed to this that I just can't fucking hold it in. No shit, Sherlock. Of course you couldn't find any other arrest, the article is over. Matt, you plagiarized Wikipedia. Or whoever wrote this script for you plagiarized Wikipedia. It's either one or the other, and honestly, I'm appalled. Because this is not just plagiarism, it's covert plagiarism. The script actually changed bits and pieces to disguise the fact that it's actually plagiarizing Wikipedia. There is no mention of the Wikipedia article in the video or in the references. Matt presents all of these findings as if it was the result of his own original research. As if he found the many different articles all by himself and then grouped the information together to create a timeline of events. Listen to what he says.
And Nicholas's latest arrest that I could find.
As if he really researched this segment instead of plagiarizing fucking Wikipedia. This would be hilarious if it wasn't so depressing when you see it in its proper context. And you know, Wikipedia is free and open source. You can use the articles however you want, independently of fair use. You can even reuse the entire article word for word and even for profit, but at one condition. You have to give them proper credit. You have to make it clear that you're reading Wikipedia. And Matt does none of that. So at this point, what's even the purpose of this referencing the sources in the video description if it turns out that the list is incomplete and inaccurate? Because it looks to me like the real person might be to effectively disguise the channel by harmonizing its output and appearance to that of a reputable channel covering this specific niche of content. This is unbelievable, but also strangely believable too. And at this point, what I found on this channel left very little doubt in my mind. And I have some questions. What the hell are you doing, Matt? What is the purpose of your videos? Because if they're almost exclusively a source of information, and the information turns out to be often inaccurate, maybe even scrapped together, then they can't possibly be for the purpose of informing or educating the viewers. And if you don't even bother watching the Queen's interviews, the videos, listening to the podcasts, watching the old episodes of Drag Race that you reference in your work, and instead you repeat second-hand information or even plagiarize your sources, well, then I doubt you find any real pleasure in researching your topics, and I doubt you genuinely enjoy the process of creating. And if it's not for informing the viewers and it's not for the pleasure of creating, then what is the purpose of your content? What is it? Believe it or not, Matt gives us an answer himself in the video descriptions. Turns out that his videos are for entertainment purposes. So, a channel that effectively presents itself as a source of information is actually about entertainment. This kind of reminds me of another channel called 5 Minute Crafts, who effectively presents itself as a source of useful life hacks when in reality it's just fake videos created for entertainment purposes. But again, regardless of what Matt says, the basic truth here is that I don't trust him anymore. So let's just follow our original train of thoughts and see where it leads us. I disabled my ad block and opened some of Matt's compilations. Before I show you the result, let me give you first a little bit of context. First, we content creators in the YouTube Partner Program lost our ability to choose how ads are displayed. If we want to monetize a video, then YouTube automatically places ads before and after our videos, and we can only choose if we want ad breaks in the video itself, how many of them we want, and their position in the timeline. So I'm just going to consider this kind of ads, also known as mid-roll ads. In addition, it wouldn't be fair to consider short videos because placing 2 or 3 mid-roll ads is a basic necessity for most content creators to actually earn something for their work, especially if the video was very time-consuming to make and won't make millions of views. But compilations like these ones are basically a repurpose of your own work, so whatever money you make, you are making it on top of the revenue that you already got from the original videos. And this can be useful information. And finally, YouTube doesn't guarantee that ads will actually play on the video. Why? Well, because if there is no advertiser available at the moment, then no ads will be displayed. So our estimate could be reductive, because it might underrepresent the amount of mid-roll ads that Matt actually placed on the video. Now, I can't show you the ads without doxing my location, but I'll leave a small section visible where YouTube puts a disclaimer to inform you that you're now watching an ad instead of the video. There is one ad here, one here, another one here, and another one here, and so on and so forth. This is the total amount of mid-roll ads in the video, and this is the average time interval at which they are displayed. And let me tell you, I find this incredibly disheartening because this is not only content that already generated good revenue, but it's on a video that it's over 1 hour long, where normally I would expect ads to be more spaced compared to short videos, even if it's non-skippable ads. There was a part of me that wanted to believe that maybe Matt turned off the ads on short videos to make them more accessible and quick to watch, and only placed ads on compilations. But no. And that's a huge amount of revenue generated by the Drag Tea Served channel. How much is impossible to say with exact precision, but in 2023, Matt's channel made over 30 million views. 30 millions. While the views alone are not sufficient to determine how many ads were actually served to the viewers and how much they paid, the fact that Matt's channel got consistently suggested to new viewers to the point of almost doubling its subscribers to the level you see today seems to suggest that it might have a pretty good audience retention. And if I had to make a conservative estimate by extrapolating from my own analytics, then after the cut of ad revenue that YouTube keeps for itself, we're pretty much hovering around the 6-digit territory, but probably well past behind it if audience retention is really that strong. And that's also on top of Patreon subscriptions, channel subscriptions, and merchandise. Then remember that this is just part of the story. The real cash cows are sponsorships. And I'm not even going to explore revenues from sponsorships because I think you get my point already. This is not spare change by any stretch of the imagination. Drag Tea Served collectively generates an impressive amount of revenue by publishing videos that for the vast majority merely repeat information that was the result of the work of other people, with little to no substantial commentary, criticism, or analysis. Shows developed and produced by other people, backed up by the creativity, ingenuity, and financial investment of other people. Interviews paid and performed by other people. Original findings that came from the research done by other people, including the collective effort to report and catalog information done by the Reddit community. And for the most part, he doesn't even bother mentioning those peoples in the video. Sometimes not even providing a link to their work, with the worst examples in which the information is not even reported accurately or the work of other people has been actually plagiarized for profit. Those videos are presented under titles that could often be described as clickbait when compared to the actual content of the video, with keywords like shocking, crazy, mind-blowing, scandalous, dramatic, the truth, forced, all accompanied by impactful thumbnails that complement the title of the video. And when I consider Matt's content from this perspective, words like originality or creativity are literally the last words that would come to my mind. But there's another expression that surely seems to be way more accurate and descriptive of the actual content of the videos and their reason for existing in the first place. And that expression is farmed content. Also, while doing my research, I came across this tweet, to which Matt responded that creators have no control over the kind of ads that appear on their channels. He also responded with this post, reinforcing the same message. However, this is not true. We creators in the partner program, Matt included, can restrict the kind of ads that play on our videos through this console. For example, this is my console, and these are the category of advertisement that I decided that I didn't want on my channel. Some are based on my personal belief, and others are exactly there to protect my community and my audience, because I am very well aware that far-right movements will use YouTube advertisement to push their hate message against our community. And even though not all of the ads that are part of these categories will be against us, I am simply not willing to run that risk, period. And Matt should know about the existence of this console, because when brands pay you for a sponsorship, they might ask you to exclude any category of advertisement that's in direct competition with the product that they're paying you to sponsor. And of course they would. Now, naturally, if this console gives us more control over the kind of ads that play on our videos, it also comes at a cost. The more of these categories we exclude, the smaller the pool of advertisement available. The smaller the pool, the lower the chance an ad will play on our videos and generate revenue for the channel. So, you see, creators have a vested interest in leaving all of these boxes unchecked. It's impossible to say if Matt is simply unaware of its existence or is just trying to maximize his revenue. But I find it very curious how knowledgeable he actually is about interest-based advertising, only to have no idea that this console actually exists and how it works. Also, I want you to notice the peculiar choice of words here, and how this is really a form of double language, because it is vague enough that in this specific context will give out the impression that YouTube might be responsible for placing many ads in our videos without our consent, but it's also worded in a way that actually represents the truth to anyone that knows it, which is that we creators in the partner program have full control over the amount of mid-roll ads in our videos, but their presence is not always guaranteed by YouTube. So we have no control if the ads are actually served and shown to the viewers or not. Peculiar language for peculiar intentions, some would say. However, this is exactly the kind of wording that I came to expect from Matt, since at this point it has become his most recognizable trait. And you can imagine what's my personal opinion about all of this. And listen, normally I wouldn't have a problem with turning a profit on recap videos. I actually think that recaps can actually be very valuable to aggregate information from many different sources and introduce new viewers to topics that they might have never heard of before. But this is not one recap every once in a while that we're talking about, and it's not like no one recapped the same information before. Recaps are the bulk of the content of the channel, with some very rare exceptions, and if it's not recaps in the list format, then it's recaps of Roscoe's viewing party. And if it's not recaps of Roscoe's viewing party, then it's compilations of his own recaps in the list format. And if it's not compilations of his own recaps in the list format, then it's compilations of his recaps of Roscoe's viewing party. We're not done yet, because if it's not compilations of his recaps of Roscoe's viewing party, then it's compilations of his video recaps in the list format. And frankly, at this point, I don't know if a better definition of derivative ever existed or will ever exist. Well, almost. Pardonnez-moi, monsieur. And all of this is presented under impactful titles that sometimes even misrepresent the actual content of the video. And by content, I mean information that was originally provided by other sources. Information that's often reported inaccurately by sources who are not even mentioned. But I guess in the end, I was the one who was wrong. Because when it comes to being a content creator, Matt sure seems to be passionate about something, after all. And I want you to look back at the channel now and notice the significant absence of commentary, criticism, or analysis. Mistakes that hardly any legitimate fan of the show would ever make seem to be present every step of the way. Mispronunciation, dramatizations, capitalizing on controversial issues, lack of original research, lack of proper fact-checking, plagiarism, clickbait, quick video turnover. Can you think of any other channel that did these exact sort of things? Anyone comes to mind? As the ship moves closer and closer to the black hole, something strange starts to happen. The gravitational pull is so strong that time-space itself gets stretched and you start experiencing a strange effect called time dilation. Although you don't really feel it because from your point of view, nothing changed at all. But while you experience the passing of one day, everyone else that's far enough from this gigantic monster experienced 2 days. As you move closer and closer, the effect gets stronger. 1 day passes for you, but it's now 3 days for everyone else. You move closer and it becomes an entire week, 2 weeks, a month. That black hole has a name, and it's called Unawareness. The people on that ship are the audience, and from their point of view, nothing strange is really happening. And the closer and closer they get, the more unaware they are of the actual time constraints of the creative process. The more they grow convinced that it's entirely normal for a single person to deliver a massive amount of content and audience interaction in such a short period of time. And to do that every single day, every single week, every single month, for almost 2 years. It's Tuesday morning and it's time to work. It's not just work, you will have to crunch. You wake up at 7 a.m, take a shower, have some breakfast, maybe smoke a couple of cigarettes and give your brain time to get ready. It's now 8 a.m. The new Roscoe's viewing party was published and you have to create a recap as quickly as possible. You will spend the entire morning doing preparatory work. Watch the video, taking screenshots, taking notes, including all of the things that you want to highlight and the word-for-word quotes from the queens, connecting the dots between what's said in the video and what happened on Drag Race, and gathering all of the additional materials that you will need for editing later on. The better you work right now, the faster your subsequent work will be. So you better do as much of a good job as you can right now, because it's time very well invested. It's now 12 and it's almost time for lunch. You ordered something from DoorDash or Uber Eats and take 1 hour to rest and have your lunch. It's now 1 p.m. and you start writing your script. Thanks to your notes, the writing itself moves pretty quickly. You inevitably notice tiny errors or realize that you missed an important quote. But again, most of the job was done very well. You quickly get back to the video, get the little materials that you missed, and finish with your script. Fortunately for you, it's also a good day. You're basically done doing all of that in about 3 hours. It's now 4 p.m. There is still plenty of time, but you're also starting to get tired. Not physically, mentally. You take half an hour to rest because you need to be well rested to review your script. You know how important it is to have the script locked down perfectly, because if you don't, it will take you hours to record the voiceover and then re-record any correction that you might need, not to mention going through the editing of a messy voiceover, which is literally a nightmare. You take your time, you rest, you review your script, and now it's almost 6 p.m. It's time to record. You set up your microphone, make a sound check while you order DoorDash for dinner, and then you start recording. Again, lucky for you, it's a good day. So your voice is already warmed up and you go through the voiceover pretty quickly. So instead of taking 2 hours to record the voiceover, it only took you an hour and a half. It's now about 7:30 p.m. and it's time for dinner. But you only have half an hour for that, because then it's back to work. It's 8 p.m. and it's time to edit the voiceover. You need to refine the track first, remove background noise, normalize the volume, adjust the equalizer. It's quick work, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. The editing itself is the bulk of the work, and it will depend on how good you worked on the script and how good the voiceover itself was. You start to realize that the time that you spent before was very well invested, because it only takes you less than a couple hours to edit the voiceover. Now it's almost 10 p.m. and you are finally done. But unfortunately, while you review your work, you inevitably noticed some tiny errors. Things that you missed, or maybe some bad audio when you turned away from the microphone without even realizing it. But it's quick work to re-record what you need. So you give it a final push, re-record what you need, edit it back into your edited voiceover, and then you can finally go to bed. It's 11 p.m. and you are destroyed because you crunched for almost 15 hours. You wake up the day after, it's Wednesday, you follow your routine and go back to work at 8 a.m. It's time to edit the video. You have most, if not all of the images that you're going to need because you did a really good job the day before. It's just a matter of animating them and add the transitions. You are pretty much done in 2 to 3 hours, including the time spent to check the editing itself. It's 11 a.m. and it's time to render the video, which means transforming the timeline in the editor into an actual video file. Lucky for you, you purchased a very expensive and powerful machine, so everything is ready in about an hour and a half. But you will be multitasking, because while your computer does the rendering, you think of a catchy title, you edit your thumbnail, write a description for the video, prepare the timestamps for your chapters, prepare keywords, prepare the timestamps for your ad breaks, write a pinned comment for the video, and prepare posts that will be advertising the video, including materials that will be attached to your post. It's almost 1 p.m. and the video is rendered, but your work is not finished, because you need to review it to check for errors in the editing. It takes as much as the length of the video itself. It's now 1:30 p.m. If everything is fine, you can upload the video with all of the information that you already gathered before, including materials for the social media posts. But unfortunately, you noticed a mistake, and it's very quick to fix that. It's literally less than 5 minutes, but you will have to render the video again. That's the problem. Meanwhile, while the computer re-renders the video again, you can rest a bit, have some DoorDash for lunch, because you really earned it. It's about 3 p.m, a quick check, and everything is fine. You upload the video, add all of the information, make your social media posts. It's 3:30 p.m, and you take the rest of the day to rest, because you have been crunching for almost 2 days, and you're physically and mentally destroyed. Thursday is your weekly day off. You are still a bit tired from crunching, but this day will bring everything back to normal. You do all of the things that you need to do in your everyday life because this is your only free day. You buy some groceries for the week, clean the house, do your laundry, maybe go out and do some shopping, go to the gym, or meet a friend for dinner. It's Friday morning, 8 AM, and you need to create a new video for your Rumors, Mysteries and Spectacles channel. You need a video idea, but don't get carried over. You are not trying to actually create anything in the strict meaning of the term. You are not Blazer Maze, you are not Kimberly Clark, you are not top RPDR, you don't have weeks to create anything revolutionary. You are going to aggregate information that was originally provided by others. So all of your creative process is basically thinking of a catchy idea, a catchy title that somehow represents the information that you're going to recycle. You just need 5 or 6 curious things for your list video, and you don't have time to research anything firsthand, like follow a hunch, start researching, encountering dead ends, look elsewhere, more dead ends, follow another hunch, do more research, another dead end, but then finally something. What does it mean? You don't have time to do any of that. You just repeat things found by other people, from interviews done by other people or articles written by other people. The problem is you need to find their information first, and that's the extent of the research that you're going to do. Also, you don't have time to fact check anything, not even consulting the source material itself. So you start Googling and Redditing as much as possible. Much like for the Roscoe's recap, you take notes, get images, everything that can be useful while searching for what you need. In about 4 hours, your quote research is done, and everything goes on much like for the Roscoe's recaps. But you're taking it a little bit slower because you can't work 15 hours every day without burning out. So you only work 8 to 10 hours a day, and by Sunday afternoon, maybe your video is ready to be published. Unfortunately, it's already very late in the day and you want to create a video for your TV show's channel. Nothing major since again, you're just repeating information, but you need to find that information first. And it's information that's much more sparse compared to your previous videos on this channel. All the preparatory work for your script can take 2 to 3 days, and the editing itself is a totally different story, because it will also contain video edits. And you don't have days to gather the original clips and find what you need. So, unfortunately, you'll just have to take other people's video edits. But again, you need to find their videos first. And then there's the entire script writing, recording the voiceover, editing, checking, uploading. And you also wanted to make an interview with the Queen. But you barely have 2 days before it's time for another Roscoe's recap. Fortunately for you, you discovered a way to send information almost instantaneously to that ship full of potential customers. And guess what? Time dilation is on your side. In 2023, Matt, working completely alone like he claims, published 67 videos, 9 compilations and 226 shorts on the Drag Tea Served channel. I'm not going to show the shorts to avoid polluting the view, but I will discuss them later on separately. These represent the bulk of his work. 30 interviews, 46 video clips from the interviews channel and 10 shorts were created on the Drag Tea interview channel. Now, some of those interviews and clips are clearly re-uploads, since they have been uploaded on this channel on February the 1st. But we can quickly clean up this list by checking on Apple Podcasts, where the interviews are uploaded as podcasts. After cleaning re-uploads and merging interviews that are split over 2 videos, this channel has a total of 9 interviews, 23 video clips, and 10 shorts produced in 2023. 11 videos and 10 shorts are from the What the Matt channel. 3 videos were published on July 18, but since the channel was created on May 5 and it actually had views between May and June, we can assume that those videos are re-uploads, and then add an approximate date for their creation that evenly redistributes the workload. When putting everything together, in 2023, Matt, working completely alone, published a grand total of 78 videos, 9 compilations, 9 interviews, 23 video clips from interviews, and 246 shorts. And I'm not showing video clips from the interviews and the shorts, which are shown only as a number. There are no visible pauses in his work, and while for the last 3 months of the year there is still a semblance of credibility in his video output, for all the other months Matt's timeline looks humanely prohibitive, especially considering that what you see here is not even representative of the total amount of work that Matt claims to be doing all by himself. Apart from the Roscoe's recaps, which usually only contain images, there are videos on the Drag Tea Served channel that contain multiple video edits, the most time-consuming kind of edits. Those videos would take at least a week, but probably 2 weeks, for someone researching the topic and doing everything completely alone. But Matt seems to be able to get it done in a handful of days, even 2 or 3 days, for videos on his TV shows channel. In 2023 there are 9 compilations in total, which are relatively quick to make compared to a full video, but they still take time because Matt has to record a small introductory voiceover, stitching everything together, then rendering the video, checking the video, and then upload everything with all of the tags, names, description, chapters, ad breaks, thumbnails, pinned comment, you know the drill. And all of that doesn't magically happen by itself, it's still a good amount of work. Meanwhile, Matt has time to make interviews with the queens. And while it might seem trivial to just sit and chit-chat, the reality is that it takes a lot of work. It can be as fast as just exchanging some emails and settling on a payment for the lesser-known queens, to an incredibly time-consuming process for the more famous queens. You need to contact their agent, exchange information with them, agree on a payment and a time. In some cases, sign a contract with all of their terms and conditions and send it back. Due to global time zones, you'll need to adapt to their needs and maybe have to record in the middle of the night. It can happen. The agent might also provide you with a list of things that you cannot ask. But most importantly, since YouTubers are not journalists bound to an ethical code, and all of the queens already know the drill when it comes to have no control on the final edit of a piece of media, most of the famous ones will probably require to have final say on the edited interview, which means going back and forth and re-edit if something is not satisfactory. You need to prepare your equipment, check that everything works, because you can't afford to trash all of the preliminary work only to find out that you didn't record anything. Then you need to do the interview itself, edit the interview, and those interviews are full of video clips that are edited in the video itself, so you need to find all of these clips as well. Then you need to render everything, upload the video, while doing all of the things that you already know about uploading a video. For any one of those interviews, we're easily talking about 30 to 40 hours of work, even if you're well organized and can edit quickly. But it can be way more than that. Meanwhile, Matt has time to render the audio for those interviews and then upload them as podcasts on different platforms, with its own sets of tags, descriptions, and whatnot. And while it can be relatively fast and only take 2 or 3 hours of work, it still adds up. Meanwhile, Matt has time to parse through his interviews, edit them into short 10-minute clips, and upload them as well, each clip with its own set of thumbnails, descriptions, ad breaks, and so on. You know the drill. And if he's not doing interviews, then meanwhile, Matt has time to create videos on his third channel, coming up with original ideas, doing the research, finding and reading multiple articles, watching multiple videos, editing multiple video clips for all of those videos, writing scripts, recording voiceover, despite the fact that it would take a minimum of a week of intensive work and crunching for any experienced creator to make a single one of those videos. And crunching like that can't be sustained for a long period of time. Meanwhile, Matt has time to make original podcasts for his Patreon subscribers, and while recording a podcast itself can take as little as just the time you need to record, a little preparatory material might be needed, not to mention editing everything and then uploading the content to his platform, and then engaging on that platform. Meanwhile, Matt has time to create subtitles or captions for all of his videos. Have you ever noticed that almost nobody does that? Adding subtitles can be useful to maximize accessibility of your content, maximizing your views, and ultimately maximizing your revenue. Then why almost nobody else does it but Matt? Bussy Queen, no subtitles. Jack Fad, no subtitles. Green Gay, no subtitles. Mera Mangle, no subtitles. I Am H.O., no subtitles. Yuki, no subtitles. And the list goes on and on. Why? Well, because making subtitles is an incredibly time-consuming process. You cannot just upload your script. All of your sentences must be accompanied by a precise timestamp so that the right sentence appears on screen at the right time. It would normally take days to do everything manually, and while the most resourceful creators can make use of AI to automate this process, like YouTube does for automatic subtitles for example, you still need to manually review everything from start to finish, because that's exactly the point of adding your own subtitles instead of just using the automatic ones that are provided by YouTube. You create your own subtitles for more accuracy, and Matt's subtitles are most definitely manually reviewed. Look at this video. The automatic subtitle from YouTube says Jeremy, while the one uploaded by Matt says correctly Jeremy, spelled with an A. And this gets even worse when you consider compilations, because for the video you can effectively chain each video file one after the other, but you cannot do the same for subtitles because they have their own timestamps that depends on the original videos. So you need to start from scratch and then manually review everything. Do you have any idea how time-consuming it is to manually review, compare, and correct subtitles? But it gets better, or worse, depending on your point of view. Because apparently, in 2023, he also had time to create Spanish translations for his subtitles. Can it get better than this? How about an almost 1 hour compilation of half a dozen videos with subtitles in 5 different languages? Can it get better than this? How about this almost 4 hours compilations of his own Roscoe's recaps with subtitles in 5 languages? Surely it can't get better than this, right? Right? How about in September 2023, Matt started uploading subtitles in 5 different languages for all of his videos? And if you think that these are just translations from Google Translate, guess what? This is one of Matt's English subtitles in Google Translate, compared to the translated subtitle uploaded by Matt. There are obvious differences when comparing the two together, and this is true for the Spanish subtitles, it's true for the German subtitles, it's true for the French subtitles. Imagine the days, literal days, you would need to spend to translate subtitles in 5 languages. But apparently, he also has time to translate all of this. Or maybe Matt is using an auto-translate that's not Google Translate, and then uploads the result as if it was a manually corrected subtitle, because that's what people assume when they see a subtitle that was manually uploaded, that it's accurate, that it was made by a person. Then what would be the point when YouTube offers its own auto-translation? What's the point? But maybe it's just a matter of creating an illusion of something. Because maybe a lot of viewers do not really like the auto-translated subtitles because they are very inaccurate. And so, if they see a video where there is a manually uploaded subtitle, they might be more willing to actually watch the video. Now, we can't get better than this, right? We cannot possibly get better than this. Oh well. Unless you add some Filipino translations as well. Because why not? Meanwhile, also some of the interviews have subtitles, and since interviews are not scripted, Matt apparently also had time to create transcripts for those interviews, then create and manually review every subtitle from scratch. Also, some of the clips from the interviews have subtitles, so he had time to make those too. Meanwhile, all of the videos on his 3rd channel have manually uploaded subtitles as well. Meanwhile, Matt has time to create sponsorships for his videos. And while recording a short clip pushing a product might seem trivial, the reality is that there is a lot of work behind it. What you say, how you're going to say it, what to show, what not to show. You need to wait for materials from the brand, video clips that they want you to play, images that they want you to show, things that they want you to say. And all of this is done at the discretion of the brand that's paying for this advertisement. And of course it is. And brands want to have the final word on the advertisement that you created, because they are paying you for it, and it needs to be satisfactory. There are precise timelines to account for. So after agreeing on everything and receiving the materials, you need to create your promotional segment, send it to the brand, wait for their approval, redo the segment with corrections if it's not satisfactory, and only then you can add it to your video. Why do you think that sometimes you see Bassi wearing a different outfit or even being out of drag during those sponsorship? Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever asked yourself why? Meanwhile, Matt has time to create shorts for all of his channels. We're talking about over 20 a month on average, but sometimes multiple times a day. Much like clips, Shorts are not particularly time-consuming to make, but you need to cut the portion of the video that you want, re-render it in the correct vertical format, parse it through a program to automatically write subtitles on the video itself, assuming you have access to that. Otherwise you have to do it manually. Then check everything, upload it to the channel, adding tags, descriptions, everything. This doesn't magically happen in 5 minutes, and it adds up. Meanwhile, Matt has time to consistently interact with his fans, managing his YouTube comments, making YouTube community posts on TikTok, both Patreon pages, but especially publishing content and comments on Instagram and Twitter, with multiple interactions every single day, including all of the posts necessary to push his videos. Meanwhile, Matt has time to do all of the things necessary for a normal person to function like a normal person, instead of dropping down like a fly due to overworking, including taking care of himself, taking care of his place, get groceries every once in a while, go to the toilet, take a shower, doing some shopping, or having some sort of social life, because if you think that lockdown was bad, imagine being locked down in your house and working at an inhuman pace for 2 years, without a pause and without getting out. And this, of course, includes taking a day off just to rest, watch a movie, going to a club. Meanwhile, while scrolling through Matt's feed looking for these creators that he allegedly defended against the Drag Queen Talk channel, I also found out that Matt moved to Australia. So apparently he also had time to settle all of his things at home, find a new home, travel to the other side of the globe, settling in, managing taxes, medical insurance, immigration permits, and maybe also buy some furniture for his new place, because you never quite get a place that has absolutely everything that you need right away. Meanwhile, Matt has time to take vacations. Meanwhile, this year, Matt also found time to open a 4th channel, where he apparently re-uploads his work translated in Spanish with a new voiceover. Who is this person? We have no idea, but if it's an AI, then it means even more work for Matt. Now, look at this, all of this, and tell me what you think. Because I have been taught to always be open to every possibility, no matter how improbable. But I find it preposterous to even suggest that this could be the doing of a single human being. And mind you, since the videos are just a source of information with little to no commentary, criticism, or analysis, we are assuming that all of the content in his list videos and the 3rd channel was straight out copied or plagiarized, bringing the workload to a bare minimum. If we are even suggesting any original research in the strict meaning of the term, including fact-checking, watching the original videos and so on, then you need at least 3 to 5 people working to exhaustion to even approach this kind of output. So how do you explain all of this? How?
It's just me. I can assure you it's just
bullshit.
Me. I literally do every part of my video.
That's bullshit.
Small creators like myself, genuine creators like myself, and creators like
bullshit
myself.
every fucking time.
Bullshit. Script writing,
Bullshit.
recording,
Bullshit.
literally everything I do myself.
Bullshit.
Actual genuine content creators like myself. Genuine drag race creators like myself.
Oh, bullshit. You are a fucking liar.
Tranquilo. Abre los ojos.
If you think that Matt is an actor hired by a company, think again, because while it's surely a possibility, I don't think it's a very probable one. There is a difference between pretending to be a person in the generic term and pretending to be a real, physical person, because real physical people have a legal status that is different from that of companies, and the legal liabilities of a company pretending to be a real, physical person are more than enough to render this practice effectively unfeasible. But also, there's a saying in business, if it works, don't change it. And the voiceover model, with or without animations, still works very well. And it will continue to work well for one simple reason. There will always be plenty of genuine, passionate creators who just don't feel comfortable appearing on camera or prefer to keep their private life private. And I am very much one of them. But with the exception of the interview channel, Matt's content matches with incredible accuracy the kind of content delivered by content farms. Clickbait, repurposed works, repurposed research, plagiarism, substantial lack of originality, commentary and criticism, inaccuracies so big that it's hard to believe any genuine fan of the show would ever make, fast upload rate, and more generally speaking, gambling with the YouTube algorithm to maximize suggestions and revenue. I couldn't say if Matt hired a company to create content for his channel, or if he hired script writers and editors while managing everything else on his own. But I knew that any of those options would be a far more credible one than the idea that Matt did absolutely everything by himself, like he claimed to. I knew what to look for, but the answer was buried deeper than I expected it to be, and for a long time, I searched and looked and just managed to stumble upon one dead end after the other, until finally, one day, I found what I was looking for. The last piece of the puzzle. Fiverr is a multi-billion-dollar online marketplace for freelancers. Yes, that's billions with a B, where people and companies can offer and buy different kind of services. The platform itself is gigantic, and the services offered greatly varies in type and scope. Some of those services include script writing specifically designed for YouTube videos and video editing for YouTube videos. One of Fiverr's users is Matt, and apparently he knows this platform very well. Some of Matt's services include marketing and effective use of keywords, presumably to maximize algorithmic retrieval. Does it ring a bell? Matt was very active in offering his own services, with over 700 feedbacks received up to the 17th of February 2024, the day I'm updating this script for the millionth time. And some of those feedbacks are pretty recent, which means around June 2023. So apparently, Matt also had time to do that. Matt is also no stranger to hire the services of other people on Fiverr, and that's actually how he discovered the platform in the first place, before even starting to sell his own services, and years before creating the Drag T-Shirt channel.
And I didn't have the money to pay, thousands of pounds or dollars for it. So I went onto Fiverr on the recommendation of someone who I knew.
Mr. W is a content writer offering to write engaging YouTube scripts. For this specific gig, he offers to perform a proper research and write a unique and engaging script with a proper intro, a catchy hook, a call to action, whatever that means, and an outro. He guarantees his script to be error-free and factually correct, and that it will keep the viewers engaged. One of the feedbacks on this job offer was from Matt 5 months ago, around September 2023, saying that he, quote, provided a good script and made the changes I requested promptly. And now that we know all of this, I think at this point there is very little doubt that Matt hired script writers and editors to create content for his channels. And the puzzle is finally complete. Every piece seamlessly fits in its right place, and everything finally starts to make sense. Based on his abilities from his resume, which again I'm not going to show you for obvious reasons, and as marketed on Fiverr, I believe that what Matt actually does is coming up with a subject, what he calls video ideas, and then carefully picks and chooses impactful keywords for his titles, while other people do the bulk of the job: the script, audio editing, video editing, subtitles, thumbnails. And all Matt really has left to do is recording a voiceover or reading a script on camera. And that would give him plenty of time to do the things that he genuinely seems to enjoy: the interviews with the queens, appearing on camera talking about himself, and interacting with the audience on social media. And at this point, regardless of who did what, I think it's pretty self-evident what's the business model behind virtually all of the content on these channels. Aggregate and or appropriate the work of other people while adding very little of your own. Present it under big clickbait titles, fill the video with ads and sponsorships, and then pocket the money. Rinse and repeat. For all intents and purposes, Matt fits incredibly well the definition of a human content farm while having little to no resemblance to that of a small, genuine content creator. And I have very little doubt that now that the channel is approaching 100,000 subscribers, Matt was preparing himself for another change in his image, leaving behind the list videos and launching a new series titled Have Your Say, whatever that means, a kind of content that more closely resembles the output of a genuine content creator, possibly even removing his old videos and effectively erase history now that he reached the top and the new beginning was at his grasp. Because looking back, not even appearing on camera managed to dismiss all of the criticism toward his channel and his content, and Matt was very well aware of it. For how long, it's impossible to say, because there is no guarantee that he is not actively monitoring his comment section to hide criticism. But he would have clearly benefited from an image lift, because many people started to realize that something didn't really add up with his content. And while I think that Drag Queen Talk really created a word-for-word copy of his script, or the script that he paid for, I also believe that it created a perfect opportunity for Matt months later, who ultimately ended up claiming he exposed content farms, defended other content creators, and that he exposed Butterface. Quite an image lift, if you ask me. Maybe even the perfect cover-up. And I'm sure that there was some educational value to this video. But there was also something else, wasn't it? Carefully woven with the legitimate information, something carefully placed, out of sight, but no less relevant and no less impactful. This recursive definition of content farms, for example, as both companies who run YouTube channels, but also the channels themselves are content farms. Something that must have left most of the audience at least puzzled if they stopped thinking about it for a minute. But curiously, that very peculiar definition ended up benefiting Matt instead, and in a very particular way, since it was the last piece of the puzzle for Matt to end up claiming that he exposed Butterface. And there's more. Let's go back to the definition of a content farm, which I hope at this point you have learned very well, but it bears repeating. Content farms are companies who farm content for profit. Very simple, very clear. What is farmed content? Well, farmed content is content that has very little substance, that relies or plagiarizes the work of other people, and is designed to maximize suggestions by different algorithms. It can be Google search engine, for example, if we're talking about a content farm running a website, or the YouTube algorithm for YouTube channels. It's the same concept, but different platform. And then, and only then, at the very end, we can say that some content farms that run YouTube channels also pretend to be independent content creators. Some, but not all of them. This is a small fact in a much bigger picture, don't you think? But listen again to how Matt defined content farms.
I recently had a little bit of drama where I exposed a content farm, or in other words, a big company that pumps out lots of content and pretends to be a real person. I did my video, I think it was a month ago perhaps, sort of exposing some different content farms. So as I said, these companies that pretend to be people, but they're not, they're big companies. And one of the big ones was Butterface.
Did you notice something? His definition seems to be less in service of informing and educating the audience, and more in service of providing Matt with plausible deniability. Because if the whole point of content farms is that they are companies pretending to be people, then he can't possibly be a content farm, because he is a real person. Quite convenient if you ask me.
I in the past have been accused of being a content farm because for a while I didn't do videos with me actually in them. So I think people know by now that I am a real person, not a content farm. Real person, not a content farm. Real person, not a content farm.
And when I look at everything that happened from this perspective, things that initially only left a bad taste in my mouth finally start to make sense. Is it normal, and I'm asking you, is it normal that during a Q&A, one of the first questions that you answer is if you do everything by yourself, complete with stock footage in the editing? And what about Matt's constant repeating of the phrase genuine content creators like himself? He does that 6 times with this specific wording, and almost as much in a similar but slightly different wording in a 24-minute video. And what about this constant referring to plagiarism as stealing video ideas? As if that's the only thing that there is to plagiarism.
And this channel had previously stolen some video ideas from me, and by stealing ideas from small genuine creators like myself, quite often will steal original ideas from genuine creators like myself.
Which again, it's pretty convenient because looking at Matt's content, the only feature that somewhat meets the definition of creativeness is the catchy title. It's the idea of grouping information in a very specific way. The quote video idea. That's the only thing, because the information is not novel information, there is no commentary, there is no criticism, there is nothing. And the more I follow this train of thought, The more other things starts to make more and more sense as well. This whole getting to the name Butterface, a name anyone would recognize. Who would ever suspect of someone exposing, quote, fake YouTube channels, Butterface and other content farms? It seems to me like this was an almost irresistible opportunity to establish some much needed credibility from someone on the verge of being exposed. Because Butterface was not just about clout and money. Am I right, Matt? It was about rehabilitating your image. It was about shielding you from legitimate criticism, wasn't it? And what a shield. An almost untouchable one. Because after the Drag Queen Talk incident in October 2022, everything went silent. Matt says that he made this video only because he was asked to do it. And I don't doubt that people asked. What I doubt is that it wasn't his intention all along. Listen to what he says and how he says it.
Recently, the drama started up again. The drama started up again. The drama started up again.
Impersonal, right? The drama started again. Yes, but who started it? And I hope by now, you start to recognize Matt's style. He almost never seems to say anything directly. It's always something implied, or something in between the lines, or something in the subtext. It didn't start the drama started again. He didn't claim this was his research, he omitted to say it came from somewhere else, and then reminded the audience that he is the one who already talked about it. He doesn't address why people accused him of being a content farm by rebutting the criticism. Instead, he gives you a peculiar definition of content farms that conveniently exonerates him. He doesn't claim to be the one who really exposed Butterface a year and a half later. He hides and minimizes the work of the people who actually got the job done. He doesn't make any research to answer the concerns of a viewer. He confidently says multiple times something that turns out to be false and impossible for anyone who is not a content creator to actually verify. And it's the same story over and over again. And then again and again. But who parsed through the channel and noticed this one similarity 6 months after the initial incident? Who made a post about it? Who had the most to gain from what came after it?
Recently, the drama started up again. The drama started up again. The drama started up again because I noticed that a lot of the videos, and I also saw that one of their video thumbnails, I then posted about this on my YouTube community tab.
He says in no uncertain terms that he is the one who restarted this whole thing. But he does so in a way that makes it look as if it just happened by itself. He didn't start the drama started up again. Yet he is the one who started something that ultimately ended up with him claiming he exposed Butterface and ultimately conveying the idea of someone who is actually invested in the real issues of our community, rather than just turning a profit by creating derivative content. And you know what's funny about this? That looking back, this was not even the first time that Matt connected himself to the name Butterface. Because on his Twitter timeline, I found this tweet from August 2022. There is no direct reference to this incident in his video, which is curious, isn't it? In the tweet itself, there are no video comparison, there's no mention of similarities in the script, or the sources used, or the editing itself. Accusing a channel like Butterface of plagiarism is also very convenient because they have been proven to plagiarize other content creators before, but without any actual proof. How can we be sure of what this tweet was really about? Because in light of everything that I presented so far, it only makes it look as if he had been trying to connect himself to Butterface for a long time already. Nothing like looking like a victim, am I right? And now that I think about it, how the hell did Matt manage to randomly stumble upon a video with less than 3,000 views on a channel with less than 1,000 subscribers? It's mind-boggling when you think about it, isn't it? Especially since Matt's subscribers base was still pretty tiny at that point. The original tweet itself barely had any engagement. All this time, Matt turned a sizable profit from farmed content that was produced at the expense of the people who invested time, passion, and resources to create original works, while adding little to no transformative value. All while telling everyone that he was just a small independent content creator. But look back at the time this video came out. Small content creators don't have 50,000 subscribers. They don't pull millions of views every month. They don't even earn any money if they're not in the partner program. Genuine creators don't repurpose and plagiarize the work of other people, and they don't treat their viewers like cash cows to be milked for ad revenue, Patreon subscriptions, merchandise, and the consistent engagement that it's necessary to score some lucrative paid promotions. But most importantly, genuine creators don't hire script writers to create engaging scripts, because script writing is at the very core of the creative process, and genuine creators enjoy creating, and none of them would ever pay someone for what? The luxury of being deprived of something they enjoy? It doesn't make sense, does it? Much like Krillon Media on the Butterface channel, Matt pretended to be something he is not on the Drag T-Surf channel, and published farmed content that came at the expense of the original creators, at the expense of the viewers, and at the expense of our community of creators. And he earned a sizable profit from that content, all while telling everyone else that he was just a small, independent content creator. But differently from Krillon Media, Matt took it one step further. He effectively inserted himself into the battle between content creators and content farms, conveying an image of himself as someone who genuinely cares about those issues, who genuinely cares about our community, who genuinely cares about the exploitation of independent creators from ruthless companies out for profit and profit alone. And then he put himself at the forefront of that battle, claiming he exposed a content farm, claiming he exposed Butterface, while confining, omitting, minimizing, and misconstruing the work of the people who actually put in the work to expose that channel and the company behind it, who put in the time and research to find hidden connection and buried information. People who genuinely take these issues to heart, so much so that they wouldn't accept to stay silent and they wouldn't be stopped by the fear of retaliation from a multi-million-dollar company. And he did all of that while effectively gaslighting an entire community of people into believing that he was a small, genuine content creator, driven by passion, curiosity, and creativity, while at the same time turning a sizable profit from farmed content. And I want you to stop for a moment to think about the real magnitude of what Matt did. And once you have done that, take a break, pause the video if you need to, because we are not quite done yet. Because in Matt's usual fashion, he took it one more step further. And even though we are pretty deep in Matt's iceberg, we haven't quite reached the bottom yet. Content farms and their channels are just the tip of the iceberg. Once you move downwards, you start to see the real extent of the problem. Even before I noticed the Butterface channel back in 2021, my channel was already plagued by problems. When I started to create videos on YouTube, I was incredibly naive, but very motivated. This channel was a very special project for me that had a real impact on my life and well-being. I loved Drag Race, and I wanted to share my passion by making videos that celebrated the show. The top 10 format was a very popular one, hence the name of my channel, because Drag Race Top 10s was already taken. But I really wanted to bring it to the next level. I wanted to do things like no one had ever done before. But most of all, I really wanted to give the figurative middle finger to a company called WatchMojo, who was making the laziest top 10s you could ever imagine. Of course, by today's standard, they look almost high quality. So here are some of the reads that were exclusive to the Logo website and never aired, and you cannot find them on YouTube. What about those gaggy editing fails that I noticed while rewatching the show on loop? What about these queens dealing with unhinged members of the audience? Or let me expand on this joke, create a whole mythology around it full of Easter eggs and inside jokes. What if the library was an 80s retro game where you need to read to survive? Have you ever seen the real power of editing? There was a learning curve, for sure. But I was original, I was creative, and I was talking about things no one ever talked about on this platform. In time, most of my videos were hit by copyright claims. Some I defended by paying for legal advice out of my own pockets, others I modified and re-uploaded later on, but a lot of them are just lost to the sands of time. But you know, it didn't really matter. I loved what I was doing and my videos gathered millions of views, which is the dream of every YouTuber. The problem is, it was not mine. When I started to realize the real extent of the human cost behind Drag Race, the dream, my dream, was broken, and it was never going to come back. My enthusiasm, my passion, they simply vanished. And so I decided to just throw it all away, restart from scratch, and try to give a voice to all of those artists who made me feel like I mattered in a time when I couldn't even tell if I was able to feel something or not. And that's when the vultures came. How do you explain the issue of editing to an audience that doesn't know it exists and doesn't even want to listen? I had to get creative. Taking inspiration from literature, I came up with archetypes that matched fairly well with the show and created a basic description of their characteristics and story arc, based on everything that I observed by binge-watching the show on loop for basically a decade at this point. I noticed how confessionals were used as meta-commentary and put focus on them and the way they were often mismatched. Editing fails came handy once more to explain manufactured dynamics. I highlighted the use of background music and sounds to convey emotions in the viewers, all while discussing topics that were being universally ignored, like the Drag Race contract, the cost of runway dresses, the commercial dynamic behind Drag Race, and the human aspect of the show. Most importantly, I stopped worrying about the way I talk and just give my channel a voice, my voice. And that allowed me to livestream, talk to people directly, answer their questions, clear their doubts, make them understand, and also have some fun while doing all of that. I poured everything I had in my channel, my life, my beliefs, my experience, my expertise, the people I care about. It was my creation, and it was a creation of love, and I am still very proud of it. Those concepts and ideas are now common language all over the Drag Race community. Maybe you didn't even know that they came from me. Maybe no one ever bothered telling you. But if you're skeptical, try googling archetypes like the young and talented or the silent assassin, and you won't find any meaningful reference before my show came live. And for me, it was never a question of keeping my work for myself. I put those ideas and concepts out there for people to use them. And when they did, I felt very flattered. I felt very proud of myself and my work. But most of all, I was happy to see other channels discussing the issue of editing because it helped me in what I was trying to do. It raised more awareness on the subject. What I didn't like was seeing people passing those same ideas, concepts, and descriptions as their own work. Taking credit for my work was bad, but to me, it felt as if they were also taking away a part of my life. The young and talented is not just a random expression, it's the way my classmates used to tease me in my first year of high school. The silent assassin, something that I already mentioned in the library video, it's not called by chance either. It was the highest level of a game that my best friend was obsessed with, and we used to play it quite a lot. He was the first friend I ever came out to, and to him, it didn't matter. It had no meaning in our connection, and that made me feel so confident to come out to other people and even my family, and I still love him very much for that. Enough to celebrate a part of our friendship in my work. This is why all of this is so bitter. It's not just work, it's work I'm connected to on a very personal level. But mostly I was bothered that they didn't even explain the context behind all of those concepts and descriptions. When I created those tools to dissect the Drag Race editing, I gave them a very specific description, but I also made it very clear to my audience that nothing was written in stone. There is no rulebook for Drag Race editing. Those are just things that I managed to put together and can describe relatively well what's happening. And that's really the key. Flexibility. It's not perfect, but it works well enough. But some of these people effectively convey the idea that if something didn't match the definition perfectly, then the whole issue of editing was just a bunch of gibberish, or hiding behind those tools to give the impression that they really had any sort of expertise on the subject, making clickbait titles and idiotic explanations that made absolutely no sense, claiming the most absurd things you could think of. And this was very dangerous, because it inevitably led many viewers to label every theory on editing as a conspiracy theory. And of course they did. Of course, how can you blame them? The entire issue of editing has been trivialized to such an extent that people have become skeptical of something that should be front and center. And of course, once that happened, the show itself capitalized on that attitude by leaning into the narrative that editing is just a myth. And that's the opposite of what I worked so hard to achieve. These people, they've been destroying my goal by using the very instruments that I created in order to achieve it. I can't even begin to describe how that feels. And if that wasn't enough, I started to realize that there were creators going through my content in search for novel ideas and concepts that they could use for themselves. And again, I am flattered if someone is inspired by my work. Really, it's the biggest compliment that you could ever... Well, maybe the biggest thing is that you find something in my work that becomes useful in your everyday life. That's the biggest thing. But, you know, strictly following what I do, week after week, month after month, year after year, in order to find inspiration for their content, well, it made me feel like I was constantly followed by vultures waiting for something valuable to come out of me. It was absurd to the point of talking the way I talk, repeating the things I said, sometimes even my opinions, and that's insane. That's really fucking insane. In the meantime, I was also dealing with this. Now, the story behind the trademark of the chop is a long and convoluted one. Best case scenario, the producers of that show never even bothered to check if the trademark was already in use. Worst case scenario, they didn't even care. Suffice it to say that any shark out there would have immediately gone to a lawyer, claimed seniority on the trademark, and then shut them down while seeking damages and legal fees, maybe even a nice settlement out of court to avoid bad publicity. I sought legal advice to be sure of my standing, but I ultimately decided against it. It's not just the hassle itself. I was also worried that people with no responsibilities would end up paying the price for it. Because once legal proceedings move on, inevitably the public would pick up on the story and, by the laws of clickbait, misrepresent Manila and Latrice's involvement and damage their reputation in the process. But they were not the producers of the show. They were employees, trying to go by, in a time where lockdown was still a powerful thing. So I explained the issue in my lives whenever anyone asked, but I avoided doing anything else. I never even made a video about it. And in the years that have passed, no one ever contacted me, or offered an apology, or a word of support, nothing. But rumors and misinformation were significantly damaging my work and my reputation. This is a comment that you can still find under my first expose of the Butterface channel. And I was already going through all of this, and then the Butterface channel came, and it became the embodiment of everything wrong that I had to deal with on this platform. So when that battle was won, I felt as if I finally got some form of justice, and I was perfectly willing to forgive and forget everything that happened before. And I was not the only one. And then these two videos came out, and history was going to be rewritten. I don't blame the voiceover actor for what happened with the Butterface channel, and I think that no one really should. And before I begin exposing everything wrong with this interview, let me make a small premise, because when I started to watch this video for the very first time, I kind of admired him for trying to tell his side of the story and show the human aspect of his team. Yes, they were Team Butterface, but they were also a team of people that he cared about. And he was going alone against public perception, and that's not only a struggle that I understand particularly well, it's also one that I could relate to on a very personal level. And initially, I even respected and admired his goal. What I didn't like is the way he tried to achieve it, humanizing Team Butterface by building a narrative, instead of taking accountability, presenting all of the facts, and showing a different perspective that gives more context to a situation and ultimately leaves the viewers with a better understanding. This interview is full of omissions, deflections, misrepresentations, or even straight-out false information that ultimately paints Team Butterface as a victim of circumstances while taking little to no accountability for the things that they were actually responsible for. After rewatching this quote interview multiple times, it started to look more and more like a publicity stunt for the both of them rather than an actual interview. For someone like Matt, who seemed so eager to position himself at the forefront of the battle between content farms and independent content creators, between derivative content and time-consuming originality, between deceiving practices and transparency and honesty, Matt seemed suspiciously all too willing to let his guest establish his own narrative, while making little to no effort to actually provide a counterpoint. Under Matt's watchful eye, almost each and every opportunity for clarification is glossed over, key questions are carefully avoided, key facts conveniently omitted, and inconsistencies in most statements are all given a pass. And all of this happens with a degree of accuracy that seems to resemble surgical precision. It's almost as if Matt was empathizing more with a group of people caught profiting from plagiarizing other content creators rather than the content creators themselves whose work had been exploited. But most importantly, during this whole interview, none of them, not Matt, not Mo, ever spoke a single word of support towards all of the content creators that were affected. They didn't even acknowledge anyone else or say their names, let alone talk about the effect that the Butterface channel had on all of us. And mind you, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about losing motivation to create. I'm talking about feeling powerless, feeling invisible. Not a single word. as if extending a word of support costs millions. And in the end, I think this fact alone speaks louder than 1,000 words. Mo never once acknowledges the fact that his team was plagiarizing the work of independent content creators, which has always been the main point. Instead, he focused on the channel pretending to be a person, which is also very convenient because it shifts all of the responsibility onto the higher-ups.
That was the other part of it, stealing content and pretending to be a person. I was wondering how much were you aware of and when did that come about?
We should never have even pretended to be a person in the first place. When they decided to go ahead and uphold the idea that we were a singular entity, that's when I was like, we're
Matt makes a rare, tentative effort to at least acknowledge the stealing part of the issue. And at this point, it would be embarrassing if he didn't, because for someone who was so vocal about plagiarism in his previous video, it would look incredibly insincere and weird if he magically forgot all about it. But don't worry, this is going to be very much an isolated incident, and the topic will be soon forgotten in favor of painting Team Butterface as a victim of circumstances.
The part where they were stealing content from other channels, I guess someone had to do that. Like there was obviously, I don't know if it was the scriptwriter or whatever. Obviously they're not here to defend themselves, so I'm not gonna, but someone clearly...
Oh, I know exactly what happened.
Okay, yeah, please, I was gonna ask.
One of our editors made a boo-boo.
One of the editors made a boo-boo. You know, like the cute little mistake of a child. He is not only lying by omission, he's also misrepresenting what his team was actually doing, while shifting all of the responsibility onto a cute little mistake made by the video editor. Because when creating a video, you first write the script, then record the voiceover, edit the voiceover, and only once you have a reliable audio, you edit a video that matches the voiceover. So, how did the video editor know where to get all of the exact clips that the voiceover was referring to? That's a very interesting question, isn't it? Unfortunately, Mo doesn't say, and conveniently, Matt doesn't ask. Mo never addresses all of the videos that were plagiarized by his team. Instead, he will only refer to the one video for which plagiarism was successfully proven beyond reasonable doubt. So much for him exposing what really happened. Of course, Matt doesn't inquire any further. I guess it's much easier to just convey the idea that he would speak on behalf of others, rather than actually doing it. But the real question here is one and one only. Was he aware of the plagiarism? Well, we don't really know, but judging from his words, he clearly knew what was going on. He was very close to the scriptwriter, the one who seemed to have been responsible for tracking down successful videos and then recreating the scripts.
I had become sort of semi-confidants with the scriptwriter.
How could he be so close and not know what she was doing? We don't know, because of course Mo doesn't say and Matt doesn't ask.
I feel like we started getting sloppier and sloppier.
What does he mean by saying that they got sloppy? Again, Mo doesn't say and Matt doesn't ask.
We started getting sloppier and sloppier with what we were double checking for and what we were doing over and over again.
What does he mean by doing the same thing over and over? We don't know, because again, Mo doesn't say and Matt doesn't ask. What a surprise. But at this point, I think it's safe to assume that he means that they got sloppy in creating their shadow copies and ended up being exposed for plagiarism. But most importantly, in the very end of the video, Mo says this.
We don't always take a job because it's morally correct. We do it to put food on the table.
At this point, I think it's pretty clear that he knew that they were profiting by plagiarizing the work of other people. But according to Mo, they had no other choice, because the pandemic crippled their ability to make a living. Matt promptly agrees. Of course he does.
Maybe you went along with it, but like I said, are you kind of doing it to survive? So
according to the both of them, it's completely fine for a large group of people to band together like a pack of wolves and steal the work of single vulnerable people, who, by the way, are facing the very same financial insecurities that Mo is so conveniently using to justify his team's behavior. And mind you, he goes to great length to point out that his team was a small one.
We're like one of the smallest teams over at Creolon, and it was pretty tiny of a team. How small our team actually was.
How many people were actually there? We don't know, because Mo doesn't say and Matt doesn't ask. Well, let's think about it. We have a voiceover actor, at least one scriptwriter, audio and video editors, since Mo said one of the video editors made the boo-boo, so at least there is two of them.
One of our editors made a boo-boo.
Then we have thumbnail editor, visual artist, a channel manager, a team leader, and then Creolon's legal team to deal with copyright issues, and the human resources department to manage employees. I mean, I guess small is a matter of perspective, but this is the small group of people that were gambling the YouTube algorithm to outcompete the very people that they were stealing from. People who struggled to do everything on their own and didn't have the privilege to be backed up by a multi-million-dollar company. But I guess you can't really make Team Butterface look relatable if they end up looking like a large pack of wolves banding together to prey on single, vulnerable people. But according to Mo, they had no other choice, because of the pandemic. However, he is omitting a key piece of information here that Matt doesn't seem to know or even care to acknowledge, because during lockdown, some industries actually saw an unprecedented level of growth never seen before. Think about it for a moment, because with virtually the entire population of the planet locked in their homes, people started to massively consume online content. Internet shortages even became a thing, and suddenly actors, scriptwriters, visual artists, and editors became a commodity for all of those companies out there who were trying to profit from this huge boom in the industry. And by the law of supply and demand, now people in Mo's line of work could command a higher salary for their services. So why did he stay at Creolon if they didn't pay like kings?
They did not pay like kings.
If the work was frustrating?
We knew what we wanted and we couldn't get it. We were sort of stuck in a rut.
And what they were doing was not morally correct?
We don't always take a job because it's morally correct. We do it to put food on the table.
That's a very good question. But as you can imagine, Mo doesn't say and Matt doesn't ask. But I think I have a pretty good idea why, and for some reason, I think that Matt knows as well. On a channel whose business model relies on pretending to be a person to maximize engagement and relatability, the voiceover actor is basically the only irreplaceable member and the most valuable one. Lose the voice actor and you lose the masquerade of pretending to be a person. And that gives him leverage. And more leverage means commanding a higher paycheck. Take the Untold brand, for example, a conglomerate of channels that collectively published almost a video a day and on average made well over 1 million views for every single one of those days. All in all, that's a very respectable 7 figures a year just from ad revenue from YouTube. How much do you think the Anna Hoop voiceover actress actually earned for every single voiceover? $200? $300? I mean, it sounds like a miserable paycheck compared to the brand's collective earnings, but imagine spending a dozen hours a week to record voiceovers and being paid around $20,000 to $30,000 a month for that. How does that sound? Would you do it? And if Butterface managed to replicate even half of the success of Anna Hoop, Mo would have earned a sizable profit every single month for many years to come. So I wonder, how far am I from the truth, Mo? Of course, he doesn't say, but I surely would ask. But according to Mo, working for Creolon was just a matter of trying to make ends meet during the pandemic. So, I wonder, why did he come back to such an awful job near the end of 2022? Even if we ignore the fact that this industry was blooming during lockdown, now everything was open again. He could have easily found a job that paid better.
They did not pay like kings.
Didn't involve doing something frustrating.
We knew what we wanted and we couldn't get it. We were sort of stuck in a rut.
And didn't put into question the morality of it all.
We don't always take a job because it's morally correct.
So why did he come back?
Well, I can kind of see why a voiceover artist would just probably carry on doing it because they need the money. But did you at any point say, I don't want anything to do with this, I'm just not gonna, like, why go back to doing it?
I actually thought, we go ahead, we come clean, we do a face reveal, we do.
But again, I think I have a hint of what the comeback was all about, because internet moves fast, and the news of today is the ancient history of tomorrow. Over time, Butterface could have seen a new resurgence, go back to growing again, attract hundreds of thousands of views per video, and he would have become once more the most valuable member among the whole team, no doubt commanding the highest paycheck. But of course, none of this was even remotely mentioned in this piece of cloud-chasing propaganda, not by Mo, not by Matt. I guess you could call this a hell of a downplay.
But it's queer people still trying to do something they love. We just happen to have a backer. Our team lead, they left the company. I think heads rolled for what happened there. I feel like that exposition might have gotten the poor bloke sacked.
But unfortunately, the wrong people suffer the consequences as a result of that.
The team leader was fired after the channel got exposed. And I want you to think for a moment that under his supervision, Butterface was exposed for plagiarizing other people and being run by a content farm. And in the process, the entire Anaub conglomerate, a business worth millions of dollars a year, got exposed as well for lying to their audience and being run by a content farm. This was not a boo-boo. He could have cost the company millions upon millions of dollars in revenue. It was his job to supervise the team. The scriptwriter failed at her job by repurposing the work of other people instead of actually creating scripts. The editor failed at his job by providing perfect proof that would expose what the scriptwriter was actually doing. The thumbnail editor failed at his job by providing similarities between channels. Whoever wrote this spin on the narrative failed at his job by contradicting himself and providing further clues that the channel was connected to Anaub, and both channels were run by the same company pretending to be a person. And the team leader failed at his job because he didn't actually supervise what everyone else was doing. And because of that, the company decided to let him go. What's so special about finding a replacement for someone who is not doing his job properly? Please tell me, because I really don't get it. Mo tries to convey empathy towards the team leader, but in the process only manages to convey an entitled and privileged attitude. We all work, and the deal is very simple. You get a paycheck for doing the job that you are being paid for. That's the whole point of working. No one is entitled to a paycheck for doing nothing. But Mo seems to disagree, and Matt doesn't seem to care to remind the audience about the simple reality of being paid for doing a job. I guess if he had a taste of what it actually takes to create 100% original content and doing original research for his videos, well, he might have a different attitude about all of this. And then Mo takes it to the next level by falsely claiming that the writer got doxxed.
We sort of talked about before we started recording. You were saying that unfortunately someone from the team got sort of doxxed.
Not only Matt is completely unfazed, but he even colludes with all of this by providing a definition of doxing that it's not exactly the correct one.
Sort of doxed is the word, which basically means when their address and public information gets released on the internet in a revenge way.
Yeah.
I guess it took inspiration from his works on content farms to come up with this, because it's basically the same story, different context. This one as well seems to be less in service of educating the audience and more in service of supporting a narrative. Now, what is doxing? In a nutshell, doxing is the act of stripping someone of anonymity by publishing personal identifiable information that was obtained either illegally or by hunting down and aggregating information from different public sources. So, it's immediately apparent that there are three ingredients to doxing. Number one, the person in question wishes to remain anonymous and took reasonable precaution to keep the real and online identity separate. Number two, someone finds a connection between the real and online identity. Number three, the information is published and the person being doxxed is effectively stripped of anonymity. Now, I want you to stop for a moment to think that the writer for the Butterface channel not only was not doxxed, but arguably never wished to remain anonymous in the first place, because she is the one who published her own resume on multiple websites, and she is the one who connected her name to the Butterface channel and Creolon Media. Paige even went as far as blanking her name in her exposé. This is not how doxing works. This guy is appropriating a real issue, something that involves harassment, stalking, criminal activities, people losing their jobs, even their own lives if we're talking about real activists and whistleblowers. And he does that in order to make his team look more relatable.
The sad thing about the whole situation is that we had such aspirations.
And I'm not even going into the fact that this specific definition of doxing that comes from this video is even spreading ignorance among the audience. And in all of this, Matt is not only pretty comfortable in letting all of these things go, he actually supports them.
There's absolutely no excuse for doxing someone and trying to release their personal information, And at this point, I'm starting to wonder,
What was this video really about? What is its purpose? Was this a paid interview?
Please, I've been wanting to talk about this for ages.
I don't know about that. If he really wanted to talk about this, why didn't he do so in the 18 months that passed between our exposés and this very video? I mean, there are tons of Drag Race content creators who could have offered him a neutral platform to tell his story. He could have even published the video himself. YouTube channels are free to create.
And something interesting that happened after I posted my video was someone got in touch with me on Instagram and said that they are the real voice of Butterface.
Somehow I don't believe that, especially considering how resourceful Matt can be when it comes to maintain his charade of a small genuine content creator invested in this community and the problems around it. And Mo is not difficult to find, much like the writer. He connected his name with the Butterface channel on his resume and then published it online. So I wonder, did Matt contact him? Maybe promised him a paycheck and to make him look good, let him spin the narrative on what really happened. Was this interview a way for Matt to make himself look more legitimate, while at the same time turning a profit on an issue that was incredibly felt by our community? There are so many questions, especially when you consider that this is not even the entire interview. If you want to see that, you have to conveniently give Matt some more money, as if he hadn't made enough already. But you know, what I find incredibly heartbreaking is that during this whole interview, however you want to call it, none of them ever mentioned any other content creators that were affected by the Butterface channel. No mention is ever made of the impact that they had on our motivation to create original content, how they made us feel miserable and powerless and even scared to speak out. None of them, not Mo, not Matt, felt the need to extend any word of support for what we had to go through. And this interview is not really helping anyone. Not the creators that were involved, not our YouTube community, and especially not the audience. And by the end of it, reality has been effectively replaced by a narrative that didn't really bring any tangible benefit to anyone, apart from Mo and apart from Matt, who no doubt had much to gain by portraying himself as someone who is genuinely invested in an issue that so deeply affected our community. And apparently, he was also very successful, because judging by the comment section, very few people actually realize the extent to which they have been deceived. And that's it. History has been effectively rewritten. The people that hurt us are now the victim of circumstances. Our story is now their story, and we have been effectively replaced by the very people we once managed to stand up against. There is nothing more to gain and nothing left to lose, and we all slowly fade to black. The Butterface incident became the embodiment of everything wrong that I had to deal with on this platform for a good half a decade. And when these two videos came out, it felt as if any form of justice that I fought so hard for and risked so much to obtain was effectively erased. And suddenly, everything that's been piling up over the years finally came back. And it came back with a vengeance. It was June, and I was just working on the script for this video. And it all happened very quickly and very, very quietly. My partner was in the hospital, and there was really no one around me that could at least help me realize that something was really, really wrong. Because from my point of view, I was just very focused on writing the script, day after day, trying to tell my story, because if I managed to do that, everything would go back to normal. And so I worked and worked, but in my mind, I was constantly reliving everything that happened, back and forth, and then back again for another ride, and then again, and again, and again. It was like a broken record on loop that just didn't want to stop, and I couldn't make it stop. It was always there, all the time, every time, from morning to noon, even in my dreams. And after a while, it became almost hypnotic. And that's when it happened. Reality checked itself out and didn't even bother leaving a fucking note. I felt like there was no more world outside those thoughts, and no more purpose, but this relentless attempt to stop them, put them into words, chain them into words, lock them on page. Nothing else mattered. Nothing else existed outside that sole purpose. Time itself lost any meaning, if it ever had one to begin with. At some point, I felt hungry, and that's when I had a hint that something was a little bit off, because I couldn't really remember when was the last time I ate something. There was an empty package of a frozen pizza on the counter, and the date on the bill said June 7th. I took out my phone to check the date, and it was out of battery. So I went back to the study to check the calendar on my laptop, and it said June 9th. That should have tipped me off. But again, I didn't think about it. I was just so hungry. Grocery stores were already closed, so I just grabbed a piece of cheese from the fridge and went back to my desk because I wanted to keep warm. A moment later, I was outside, smoking a cigarette. The entire balcony was littered with cigarette butts. I looked around, horrified. But it was not because of the cigarette butts. It's because I could see them. It's because it was the middle of the day. What have you done in that time? I don't know. When was the last time you slept? I don't know. And that's when I finally realized that I needed to ask for help immediately before I would phase out again and put myself in danger. I charged my phone, set an alarm for every half an hour, and put it in my pocket. And then I tried to focus, try to stay in the moment, trying to keep the thoughts out. And as soon as visiting hours opened, I went to the hospital. But I felt so guilty. The last thing my partner needed was worrying about me, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to anybody else. I felt so ashamed. I felt so immensely ashamed. But I asked, and he helped me. And then I went to the doctor, and he helped me too. And I've been on my way to recovery ever since. For a long time, learning to stay in the moment was a real struggle. Anytime those thoughts would come and sweep me away, and I had to learn to deal with them and contain them. So first you find things that can keep you distracted, and then you learn to slowly take back control while carefully avoiding anything that could trigger those thoughts to come back again. And after almost a month, I started to feel like myself again. In the meantime, I didn't even open my laptop. It took me until August before I would open YouTube again, and that only happened because I received an email from Google telling me that they demonetized my channel. Because, I mean, think about it. Of course they did. Of course they would. But you know, the real irony is somewhere else. I needed the money because I was barely able to function like a normal person, let alone holding a job. And everything YouTube was asking me for was to make a 6-minute video, explain what I do on my channel, how do I do it, what materials I use, how do I edit my videos, do my research. They basically want me to prove to them that I was an original creator who was actually creating content. So, I took a little bit of time to consider the situation. And by little time, I mean 3 weeks. But I really needed the money, so I forced myself to open the channel folder again at some point. And I wrote a small script to guide me, and then recorded the voiceover, edited the video. And you know what? It wasn't so scary as I thought it would be. And suddenly I felt this strange, weird feeling. I couldn't really put my fingers on it. What is it? Where is it coming from? What am I feeling? Wait a moment. I don't know. Push the brake. What the hell am I feeling? It was like a sense of urgency. But there was something good about it. I couldn't really get it. And then it struck me. I was having fun. I was actually having fun, and I wanted more. I immediately wanted more of that. Way more. I forgot how much I loved doing all of this. And that, my dear friends, is the real irony of it all. Around the middle of September, I felt confident enough to try working on this script again. When it became too upsetting, I just stopped. Then Yuki invited me as a guest for one of his videos, and it was a very safe way to start coming back to this platform, and it gave me a lot of confidence, so I'm still very grateful for that. In the meantime, I actually managed to talk about what happened with some of the people that I got to know through this channel, people that I like to call friends. My partner helped me immensely every step of the way. Not just by taking care of me, he constantly reviewed all of my work. Sorry, this is future me, and you don't really want to hear the next part, because it was painfully obvious that I was crying my ass out and tried to pretend like everything was fine during the voiceover, but I want you to smile. I want you to realize that there still could be an happy ending to this story. I'm still here, and I still very much miss making content and spending time with my community and talk about the things that I care about, and yes, joke and laugh and maybe even saying stupid shit every once in a while, because this is my channel, and my channel is an extension of who I am. I am not a brand, I am not an entertainer, I am a person going through life just like everybody else, growing and changing and learning. Making this video and speaking out was a necessary step, not only in my recovery process, but also to come back to creating. And before we move on to the last section, I would like to take a moment to thank all of the people that supported me since I started this journey so many years ago. But especially Miss Fantasia, my oldest supporter and a good friend, who gave me precious advice on the editing of this video. Fantasia, you always put a smile on my face, and you will always be my purple girl. And if you tell anyone what it really means, I swear to God, I'll hunt you down like an animal. And then buy you a drink. Or maybe two, because I really wish we could hang out. Miss Mario, who, by the way, is this bitch right here, who literally picked me up with a spoon when making this video pushed me again to the breaking point. Mario, I don't know which of your limbs you used to pick up the phone that day, but I'm so very glad you did. Thank you. And Miss Coco, aka
Seduction, Addiction,
Farrowwen, who patiently spent hours upon hours reviewing the script during its many iterations. You offered valuable feedback and suggestions that helped me immensely, and I don't know how you found the patience and the time, but I am very, very grateful. Thank you. And I want to thank all of our livestream gang that joined every Sunday over the past 4 years and made it a special time every week. Our tight community on Discord, and of course everyone who supported my work with their donations. And if you would like to help, you can join my Patreon page or leave a one-time donation using the super thanks in the comment section of the video. I really ask for one thing. I have no way to know how this situation is going to evolve and how it's going to affect my health and my ability to create content. So if for whatever reason you decide to make a donation, please consider it as a thank you for the work that I have done over the years, knowing that your support is not only appreciated, but also very much needed. YouTube is the land of variety, and variety is a wonderful thing. There is so much to see and so much to learn, and everything is just one click away. It's a place to share, a place to have fun, a place to build a community and share your work, your passion, your creativity. But unfortunately, it's also the place where some people will do everything they can to turn a profit at the expense of everybody else. Fake videos, cloud chasing, drama, plagiarism, you name it, it's all there. But I hope that there is still a place for people like me on this platform. People that take the time to create, people that want to share what they really think, in good or bad, not brands or companies or creators behaving like businesses, but people, real people, creativity, mistakes, and all of that. This space right here is something special, something that we build together, creators and audiences alike. It's a place for us to be us and share what we think, what we learn, or even just have some fun, because life outside of this space is not always easy and it's not always safe. And one can only hope that we might find the wisdom, but most of all, the patience to take good care of this place and keep it a welcoming environment where a new generation of creators will actually have a chance to emerge and bring their own unique perspective and point of view, so that this community, our community, can grow stronger and wiser and remain an open space where our differences are celebrated and where we can seek comfort and support when the world outside decides to dance on the beat of its own drum, and people are sometimes just numbers and we almost feel like we don't matter. So, hope. I don't know if this video will ever be enough to set the record straight on everything that happened. I haven't published much in almost a year, and it's very likely that this video will be buried down by the YouTube algorithm, but I hope that I can at least count on you, because I made a step to tell my story, but without your help, my voice will be lost in a sea of background noise. So please, share this video, but most importantly, share the information contained in this video, in any form and any platform that you think it's best for you. But please, don't let my experience be erased. I beg of you, let my voice be heard. Thank you.